that point, was law enforcement, did they seem too concerned?
No.
Was it because of the time frame that she'd been gone?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to elaborate?
No. But I mean, at that point, it had only been 48 hours, right?
A little less, yes.
Okay. And then after the 10th, excuse me, was there a time that you reported Taylor missing again?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and when was that?
September 14th, which was a Thursday. It was in the evening. I went to the police department.
Okay. Now, did they seem too concerned?
No.
Was it because of the time frame that she'd been gone?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to elaborate?
No. But I mean, at that point, it had only been 48 hours, right?
A little less, yes.
Okay. And then after the 10th, excuse me, was there a time that you reported Taylor missing again?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and when was that?
September 14th, which was a Thursday. It was in the evening. I went to the police department.
Now, prior to your first report on September 10th, when was the last time you had physically seen, excuse me, when was the last time you had physically seen Taylor Wright?
You said prior to her leaving?
Prior to you reporting her missing on the 10th, when was the last time you had physically seen her?
September 8th, Friday.
And where did you see Taylor on September 8th?
At my house on Berkeley Drive.
Okay. And is that in Pensacola, Florida?
Yes, ma'am.
Was Taylor living with you at the time?
She was.
What time was it on September 8th when you last saw Taylor, approximately?
Approximately 10 a.m.
And what were the circumstances? What was going on around 10 a.m.?
I was getting ready to leave to go volunteer. I had to count shirts for an event coming up the following week, and she was getting ready to leave the house.
And was she leaving the house with anybody?
Yes.
Who was she leaving with?
Ashley.
Ashley who?
McArthur.
You said that they were leaving your house?
At the time, no. I left before both of them went wherever.
Okay, very good. Were you familiar with Ashley McArthur at that time?
I was.
Okay, and how did you know her?
Through Taylor.
Now, do you see Ashley McArthur in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you please point to her and identify what she's wearing?
She's right here. She's wearing a black outfit.
Okay. Is she seated in between her two attorneys?
Yes, ma'am.
Let the record reflect this witness has identified the defendant. Now, prior to Ashley and Taylor being at your home that morning, what was Taylor's demeanor that morning? How did she seem?
Initially, she seemed okay.
Okay. Did that later change that morning?
It did.
Okay. When was that?
As it got closer to me leaving and Ashley arriving.
Okay. And how did her demeanor change? If she started okay, what did she seem?
She started getting stressed out.
Now, had Taylor been drinking alcohol that morning at your home?
No.
Was Taylor a big drinker?
Not really.
Did you know Taylor to drink in the morning or before noon?
No.
Did Taylor have a car at that time?
She did.
Okay. And was it at your house on that day, September 8th?
Yes, ma'am.
Did it ever leave that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. I was gone at a point, though, so.
Okay. Do you know if Taylor and Ashley left together that morning?
I don't know.
Okay. What were they doing, Taylor and Ashley, when you left?
Ashley just pulled up to my house. Taylor was walking me out to my car. I said, "Good morning. Hey, Ash."
And then you went on your way?
I went on my way.
Okay, very good. Did Taylor have a cell phone back then?
She did.
Just one?
That I know of.
Did you ever see another cell phone?
No.
And do you recall what her cell phone number was back then?
954-320-0310. And that was a 954 area code.
If I show you some text messages with Taylor, would that help refresh your memory? Sure. Good.
Witness, right?
Just take a look at this messages.
I understand it's John Barossett handling this exhibit. I mean, this witness.
I'm sorry?
No,
I'm directing this to the attorneys. Ms. Jensen will ask the question again.
Does that help refresh your memory for her phone number back then?
Yes.
Okay, and can you state it again, please?
954-520-0310.
Thank you. Do you know if Taylor had like a code on her phone, or do you know how she would?
She would use fingerprint.
Did you have a cell phone back then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and can you state what your number was for the record?
850-390-3049.
Now, after you left your home on September 8th of 2017, well, actually, let me back up. What time did you leave approximately?
Around 10 a.m. in the morning.
And did you speak, in other words, with your voice, over the phone with Taylor at all on September 8th?
No,
Did you text her at times that morning?
I did.
And did she respond at times?
She did.
When was the last text that you received from her that morning?
Probably sometime between 11 and 12.
Does 11:28 a.m. sound about right?
Yes.
Now, was there a time when your text messages to Taylor stopped? Or excuse me, her responses to your text messages, did they stop?
Yes.
And did you begin calling Taylor Wright?
I did try.
Okay. Did she ever answer?
No.
Did you take screenshots of your text messages from September 8th of 2017?
Yes, I did.
And do they show the dates and the times of your messages to Taylor and her responses?
They show the times. I want to say they show the date too. I can't recall.
Okay.
Council, approach the court, please meet. You may.
Ms. Waller, I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 3. Go take a look at that exhibit and see if you recognize it. It's actually 3A through D. There are 4 pages. Do you recognize those?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you take those screenshots of your text messages?
I did.
And do they fairly and accurately reflect the date and the time of the text messages between you and Taylor on September 8th of 2017? If you look on the first page,
Yeah, I see the 8th. They do.
Okay, very good. Judge, at this time, I would move states 3A through D into evidence.
Your Honor, we object based on the bench mark that we have.
All right, I'll overrule the objection will be received as states 3A through D.
Ms. Waller, on page B at about 3:24 p.m., you sent Taylor a text. Is that correct?
I did.
Okay. And did she respond to that?
No,
Okay. And did you call her then at that point?
I did.
Okay. And did she answer?
No,
Did you have Ashley McArthur's cell phone number at that time?
I did.
And do you remember what that was? The number?
850-712-2299.
And did you try calling or texting Ashley at that point?
I think I texted her first.
Okay. And when you texted Ashley, did she respond?
I can't remember if she texted back or if she called me back.
Okay.
At first, I know she ended up calling me.
Okay. If she did text you back, so did she text and call, or?
I think she texted me. She said, "We're okay."
Okay. And then did she end up calling you?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the nature of that conversation?
I asked her where they were, and I hadn't heard from Taylor.
What did she tell you?
She told me that Taylor was emotional, that she was out riding a horse on on Ashley's family farm in Milton, and that they'd be home shortly. I told her to have Taylor call me when she got off the horse.
Did you hear from Taylor after your conversation with Ashley McArthur?
Up until like the text in the evening?
No, I just mean at that point.
No.
Now, Taylor had apparently responded to some of your text messages earlier that morning, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And now she was not. Did that seem usual or unusual for that day?
that seemed unusual.
After this conversation with Ashley, when she said they were at a farm in Milton, did you contact Ashley again that day, later that same day?
I did.
And when was that?
Sometime in the evening, after 5.
And was that by text or by phone call or by both?
I believe I texted her.
And did she respond either by text or by phone call?
Yes, but I can't recall which one.
That's okay. Do you remember if you ended up speaking to her later that evening?
I did.
Okay. And what did she tell you at that point?
She just, again, repeated that Taylor was emotional that day. She was stressed out with the things going on with her ex-husband, the divorce. She had told me that she had some of Taylor's jewelry that was left in her car, and she didn't want to hold on to it, so she brought it to my house. She had told me that that she repeated that how Taylor left in an Uber from her house.
Did did Ashley say approximately what time Taylor left in an Uber?
Sometime between 5 and 5:30 in the evening.
After Ashley told you that Taylor left in an Uber, did you still continue trying to call Taylor?
I did.
And did you get
Nothing.
any response?
I'm not sure. We may have overlapped. What was your answer to that?
Yes, I did try and call her.
And
No
did you get a
response.
Okay. Now, a few minutes, I guess, after that conversation with Ashley, did you receive a text from Taylor's phone to your phone?
Yes,
Okay. Do you remember about what time that was?
about 7:28, I believe.
And did that text message sound like Taylor?
I'm an overrule. You can answer the question.
Most of it sounded like Taylor, except for the last part.
Okay. And what was unusual about the last part?
She said, I was trying to get my life organized and back on track. She didn't feel like her life was unorganized.
So that seemed odd to you.
That did.
Now, later that same day, this is still on the 8th, did you see Ashley McArthur?
I did.
Okay. And where was that? What was that situation?
That was in the evening when she came to my house to bring me the jewelry that was left in her vehicle.
How long do you think Taylor was at your home, if you recall?
Taylor?
I'm sorry. How long was Ashley at your home, if you recall?
No more than 15, 20 minutes.
All right. Now, did Ashley McArthur tell you any property that Taylor may have had when she left in this Uber?
Property that Taylor may have
Yeah.
had?
Did Taylor have any belongings with her when she?
She said that Taylor left with 2 brown bags. That's what she initially had told me.
And did she say that they had anything in them?
She said that one of the bags had some of Taylor's clothing in it. Some had, the other bag had like papers in it and some checks.
Did she say anything about cash?
She said cash and checks initially.
And would it have been usual or unusual for Taylor to have these brown bags?
No.
No, but which one? Is it usual or unusual?
Oh, it was usual.
Okay. Now, did you end up? Well, did Ashley tell you something different later?
She did.
What'd she tell you?
She said it was a brown bag and a black bag or grayish bag.
Okay. And then did you actually end up finding those bags?
I did.
Okay. And where were they?
The blackish gray bag was found in Taylor's truck, and then the brown bag was found in my 3rd bedroom.
And when you found them, did they have money or checks or clothing or anything in them?
The clothing was in the bag that was in the vehicle. I don't know if no checks were found in a bag in the back bedroom. There was a check found, but not in that bag.
Now, after Ashley left your house that night on the 8th, did you hear from her any more that night?
I did.
Okay. And what was the nature of that?
I'm sorry,
contact?
you said from Taylor?
No, from Ashley. Did you hear from Ashley after she left your home that night?
I did.
Okay. And what was the context of that contact?
She texted me late in the evening. It was almost midnight. She sent me a screenshot of a text that she received from Taylor. And she just said, I'm sorry to text you so late. I just received this, thought that you might want to see it.
And did you read the text message that was from Taylor to her?
I did.
And again, same question as earlier. Did that text message sound like Taylor to you?
That one seemed very odd.
Same objection,
Same objection.
rule the same.
Okay.
And why does it seem very odd?
Because she said court and the move was stressing her out. She was stressed with court. She wasn't stressed out about the move at all. She was very excited.
You're talking about the move, you mean
Moving into my house.
Okay. Now, did you also screenshot your text conversation with Ashley McArthur on September 8th, 2017 regarding Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Waller, I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit 4, A through L, 12 pages. And if you'll just take a look through those and see if you recognize. All right, now I'm going to jump back to September 8th. After you did not hear from Taylor for a few days, were you angry?
Yeah.
Were you upset?
Yes.
And had you and Taylor recently had, I guess, some trust issues?
Yes.
Okay. Are you okay? And was there a conversation that you and Taylor had at Ashley McArthur's home?
Yes.
Okay. And approximately when was that?
The end of July 2017.
Who all was there?
Ashley, Taylor, and I.
And what did you learn during that meeting, I guess?
That Taylor had cheated on me. She had another relationship.
Anything else?
Yes. Taylor told me that she had done drugs.
Did she say what kind of drugs?
She said cocaine.
And did she say how many times she had done it?
She said 3 times.
After that conversation, did you and Taylor remain together as a couple?
Yes.
Now, when Taylor, we hadn't heard from her after September 8th, did that bring kind of all those emotions and feelings back for you?
Yes, it did.
Okay. And what did you end up doing with Taylor's belongings?
A lot of stuff was already packed up because she was in the process of moving her belongings into the house. And at that point, with me being upset, I just put it back in the box truck.
And where was the box truck?
It was in my driveway.
And then what did you end up doing with the stuff that was in the box truck?
A gentleman that works for Ashley named James came and picked up the box truck and took it to Ashley's warehouse.
Okay. And had you asked Ashley to do that?
Yes.
Okay. And what date was Taylor's property moved? What day was it moved?
The Monday after, so that would have been the September 11th.
And where was it taken to?
A warehouse that Ashley owns, works out of.
Do you know the street that it was on?
Pace Boulevard.
Do you remember about what time it was that her stuff was moved from your house to the warehouse?
The afternoon, maybe between 1 and 3. I'm not 100% certain on that time.
Could it have been a little bit later?
Could have been.
All right. And who did you say James was?
My understanding is he was an employee with Ashley.
Okay, very good. Was he helpful with moving Taylor's belongings?
He was.
Now, where was Taylor's car on the 8th?
It was in my driveway, kind of off to the side in the grass.
Okay. And did you end up going through it?
I did.
Was anyone with you?
Yes.
Who was with you?
Ashley.
And when did you and Ashley go through Taylor's car?
That would have been the Thursday after she went missing. So that was September 14th.
And do you remember approximately what time that was that you went through Taylor's car?
That would have been in the late afternoon, like 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there.
Was anything removed from Taylor's car?
Yes.
What?
4 knives and 2 guns.
Anything else? I think you said something about there was a bag in there.
There was what?
A bag?
Well, yeah, the grayish black bag.
Okay. The knives and the guns that were found in Taylor's car, did either you or Ashley take pictures of those?
I know we took pictures. I can't remember if I took the picture or if Ashley took the picture, though.
Were they texted to you though, I guess to like document?
Yes. So, yeah, and Ashley took the pictures. That's right.
And then she texted the pictures to you?
Yes.
Okay. And then what was supposed to be done with those guns?
I asked Ashley to take them. I don't like weapons. I had no safekeeping of it.
Okay. Did she indicate she had someplace she could
She
put
said
them?
that she had a safe.
Ms. Waller, I'm going to show you what have been previously marked as State's Exhibits 5 and 6. You'll just take a look at those and see if you recognize them.
I do.
All right. And were those photos taken on September 14th, 2017?
Yes.
And were those guns found in Taylor's car on that day?
Yes.
Judge, at this time, I would move States 5 and 6 into evidence.
No objection.
Received as states 5 and 6.
Judge, if I could just publish them real quick.
Sure.
Watch your eyes. is State's Exhibit 5 for the record, and this is State's Exhibit number 6. Are those your fingernails or are those Ashley's?
Ashley's.
Okay. Do you remember what Taylor was wearing on September 8th, 2017, when you last saw her?
Shorts, t-shirt, flip-flops. She has some jewelry on as well.
And what kind of jewelry did she have on?
She was wearing a bracelet and do it. She also wore a bracelet with the scales of justice.
Just wanted to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 7. If you'll take a look at that and see if you recognize it. And is that a photograph of Taylor, right?
It is.
And does it show a necklace, the bullet necklace you just described?
It does.
Judge, at this time, I would move State 7 into evidence.
No objection.
Received as State 7.
If I could just publish it for the jury. This is State Exhibit number 7. Ms. Waller, did you know Taylor to use Ubers?
Not in the time frame that I was with her.
Okay. And at some point after you hadn't heard from her, did you, I guess, get into her account?
I did.
And when was the last time she used an Uber?
It was on a trip that she took to Las Vegas, which was 20.
Sustained.
Oh.
Don't answer the question.
My apologies.
Judge, can we approach?
Counsel, approach the court order and please mute the mic.
I think you said you didn't know Taylor to use an Uber in the time that you knew her.
I have not seen her use Uber
Right.
whenever I was with her.
Okay. Are you familiar with Taylor Wright's handwriting signature?
Yes.
Well, I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 26. Does that look like Taylor's signature?
This one right here?
In the course of your relationship,
I'll sustain it, and Ms. Jensen, you may follow up.
during the course of your relationship with Taylor Wright, did you ever have an opportunity to see her handwriting?
Yes.
Did she write you letters?
Yes.
Did she give you cards?
Yes.
Were you familiar with her handwriting and her signature?
Yes.
All right, I'll overrule the objection.
Again, I'm showing you State's Exhibit number 26. Does that look like Taylor Wright's handwriting
That is not Taylor's handwriting
or her signature?
or her signature.
Ashley mentioned Taylor was riding a horse at this farm in Milton on September 8th. Did Ashley ever mention a farm on Britt Road to you?
No.
In any conversations you had with Ashley McArthur, did she mention Taylor having a lockbox on Britt Road?
No.
Those are my questions. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Mr. John Barossett is going to cross-examine you, and just remember, if it's a yes or no, just answer the question. Don't volunteer extra information, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And then Ms. Jensen will get to go last.
Good morning, Ms. Waller.
Morning.
You described your relationship with Taylor Wright as not hostile, correct? Or,
Correct.
excuse me, not volatile. That was the word, correct?
Correct.
When you couldn't get in touch with Taylor Wright on September 8th, 2017, you would agree that you were very frustrated and angry with her, correct?
Yes,
As those text messages show, you called her a liar.
I did.
You called her a drug user.
I did.
You mentioned that you knew more things to her. I know everything, things you don't even know that I know, Taylor, correct?
Yes.
Going back to late July 2017, you indicated to us that you received information that Taylor was having some sort of relationship with another woman over in Mississippi, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you also said that there was a meeting, I believe maybe the next day at Ashley McArthur's house, where you found out more information, and that being that Taylor was also, I guess, potentially using illegal drugs, correct?
That's correct.
And in fact, after that, you did end the relationship for a period of time with Taylor, didn't you?
Maybe a day or two, a couple days.
Did you mention a week earlier that y'all were broken up?
Did I mention a week?
Were y'all broken up for a week?
I mean, we were having conversations. Yes.
Back to 9H, staying on the same topic, when you could not get in touch with Taylor Wright that evening, besides the things you said, you did something else that evening, right?
I did.
You went out and bought, a drug test for Taylor Wright, right?
I did.
So when she came home, you were going to demand that she take that drug test.
Yes.
Okay, so y'all's relationship was not volatile.
No.
Back to that meeting in the at Ashley McArthur's house where you had this conversation with Taylor Wright in July of 2017. When you arrived at the residence, Taylor Wright was already there, correct?
Yes.
And she was.
I'm sorry, that light is bright, the projector.
Okay, we'll cover it up.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
When you arrived at Ashley McArthur's house in July of 2017 for that meeting, Taylor Wright was already at the residence, correct?
Yes.
No one else was there, correct? Then when you went in, it was just the two of you, correct?
Yes.
How did Taylor Wright gain access to the residence?
She had a key.
She had a key to Ashley McArthur's residence?
Yes.
You did get to witness, at least on some occasions, the relationship between Ashley McArthur and Taylor Wright, correct?
Yes.
Okay, for example, I think the three of y'all may have done brunch together one time, correct?
Correct.
And then in August, as late as, and I don't know the exact date, but August of 2017, there was a trip over to New Orleans, correct?
Yes.
I know there was some snags on the trip. One person that went on the trip got sick and kind of derailed things, correct?
Yes.
But you did get to see Ashley McArthur and Taylor Wright interact in New Orleans in August of 2017.
Yes.
And you know what we're here about. I mean, there was nothing during that trip that caused you any concern about their relationship at all, correct?
No.
Spending time with Miss Wright, fair to say it became obvious that she was.
Y'all okay? We have people pulling out blankets. I wanted to make sure they heard your question, Mr. Barossett, so hang on
Thank
a
you.
second. Let me pretend to go over here and adjust the thermostat. You may ask again, Mr. Barossett.
During the time that you did spend with Miss Wright, it became obvious that she was going through some issues with her ex-husband, Jeff Wright, correct?
Yes.
Did you ever meet Mr. Wright face to face
Before or after? Taylor?
before this incident?
No.
Okay. But would it be fair to say that pretty much the entire time that you knew Taylor Wright, she seemed to be in some sort of, for lack of a better word, turmoil with her ex-husband, Jeff Wright?
Yes.
And fair to say that she pretty much, from your observations of Taylor Wright in this disagreement with her ex-husband, that she kind of had a win at all costs attitude, that she was not going to let Mr. Wright win, correct?
Yes.
I mean, even to the point that she was not, I mean, she made it very clear she was not giving him any money back, correct?
Yes.
Taylor Wright moved in with you at your residence sometime around the end of August, beginning of September 2017,
Yes.
somewhere in that time frame. And to move into your residence, it was Ashley McArthur let y'all use one of her company's trucks, correct? Her family's company's trucks to move Taylor's stuff.
Yes.
And in fact, an employee, I believe you mentioned from a business that the Britt family owns, helped with the move, correct?
Yes.
It's fair to say that this truck sat in your driveway for I don't know, a week or two, approximately?
A week.
A week, okay. And the vast majority of Taylor Wright's belongings remained in that truck as it sat in your driveway, correct?
Yes.
And that truck was in your driveway at the time on September 8th, 2017, the last time you say you saw Taylor Wright, correct?
Yes.
Do you know what kind of telephone Taylor Wright had?
An iPhone.
And to get in her iPhone, I believe you were somewhat aware of how to get into it. You said that it had to have a fingerprint to get into it?
Yes.
Could you get in with a passcode?
I'm not sure.
And the reason you had the ability was after y'all had some of the incidents in July, you made it so that you could open her phone with your thumbprint, correct?
That was Taylor's suggestion. That's correct.
My question, okay, so but that was, y'all had,
Yes.
okay, and so you could access her phone with your thumbprint.
Yes.
So the only two people you know could access her phone with her thumbprint would be her and you.
Yes.
Let's talk about September 7th, 2017. I believe that was a Thursday night that y'all met up at the Twin Peaks restaurant, correct?
Yes.
That's the one up there by Cordova Mall.
Correct.
And you and Miss Wright were there first, is that correct?
Yes.
And subsequently, Miss McArthur showed up.
Yes.
And what I heard you testify to was basically there was a conversation about Ashley McArthur picking up Taylor to take her to a bank or something like that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I believe you mentioned that the conversation was somewhat tense. You maybe used a word such as that, correct?
Not necessarily the conversation, but the demeanor of the two.
You know what I mean? Is it fair to say at that dinner or that get together that you were already, or at some point during the dinner, got upset with Miss Wright about something that happened that day?
I got upset with Miss Wright.
That's what I'm asking you. Did you get upset with her? Were you upset with her at that dinner? Let me see if I can help you. When you got to that dinner, or at least maybe sometime before that dinner, were you under the understanding that Taylor had been in Destin all day that day with Ashley McArthur?
I think that sounds familiar.
And had you not found out that that was not true? Did Ashley hadn't been with her that day?
I did not know that.
Okay. And you were upset at dinner about Taylor lying to you.
No, I was not upset with Taylor.
Staying with this conversation at Twin Peaks, you knew Taylor for an extended period of time. Taylor Wright is not a shy person, is she?
No.
Okay. She's not the type of person that is meek or described as mild, correct?
No.
Not at all.
No.
So there was no conversation of Taylor Wright looking at Ashley McArthur saying, "Give me my money. I want my money." Nothing like that, right?
No.
There was no, "Why are you stealing my money?"
No.
There was no, "Why don't you give me my money?"
No.
There was no, "Why are you making it so difficult for me to get my money?"
There was that.
She said that.
Not in those words.
Okay. That evening, did you, September 7th, 2017, did you and Taylor Wright go back to your house after leaving Twin Peaks?
Yes.
Okay. And we all together, slept together, stayed together at your house that evening?
Yes.
Were you with her until the next morning when you say, you left for work and you saw Ashley McArthur come over?
Yes.
Y'all were together?
Yes.
Okay. When Ashley McArthur came over to your house the next morning, what time do you think that would have been? This is on September 8th, 2017.
It was around that 10 a.m. time frame.
Okay. What vehicle did she come over in?
I recall a black four-door Jeep.
A black Jeep. Okay. Is that several models of Jeep? There's like the Liberty, the Cherokee,
Oh,
a
a
Wrangler,
Wrangler.
black Wrangler. So Saturday, September 9th, you did not hear from Taylor Wright.
No.
At that point, I believe you had not contacted law enforcement on Saturday, correct?
I did not.
It was so Sunday, September 11th, you contacted, I'm sorry, it was the 10th. I apologize. The 10th you contacted law enforcement. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Now let's go to September 11th, that Monday. I believe you said, you testified that you don't like guns, correct?
I don't.
Now, on September, and I maybe have my dates wrong, but September 11th, didn't you ask Ashley McArthur to bring you a gun?
I did.
And she brought you over a gun at your request.
She did. Because I had been in text conversation with Jeff about everything. He put a little fear in me that I should protect myself.
Jeff being Jeff Wright?
Yes.
I think you subsequently bought your own gun later that week, correct?
I did.
We'll come back to the 11th in just a second. I think you said there was also the day that maybe some belongings were moved. Is that the date? Taylor's belongings were moved from your house?
Yes.
Okay. We'll come back to that in just a second. Now, the 14th of September is when you say you and Ashley McArthur went into Taylor Wright's car, correct?
Yes.
And it was your idea to search her car, correct?
Yes.
And you asked Ashley McArthur to help you?
Yes.
And I believe the state introduced into evidence some pictures of some guns that were located in the vehicle,
Yes.
Taylor's vehicle. And those guns, you said, I don't want to keep those guns. We'll give those to Ashley McArthur to hold, correct?
Correct.
Even though you had just asked for a gun a couple days before.
Well, they were semi-automatics. I don't know. Yes.
In the time that you knew Taylor Wright, she liked guns, correct?
Yes.
Did you know her to have a lot of guns?
I knew of 3
Did you know her to frequent or go to gun stores?
gun shows.
Gun shows, okay.
Yes.
And to buy and sell, trade guns, whatever you do at gun shows?
Yes.
Going back to September 11th, the Monday, if I believe it was correct, of 2017. At that point, you had not heard from Miss Wright in 2 days, give or take?
Correct.
All right. And what you did was at that point, whatever belongings she had in your house, you took those and you put them in the box truck that was in your driveway, correct?
Yes.
And then on that same day, September 11th, once the box truck was loaded up with whatever her belonging, you called someone you wanted it gone, correct?
Ashley. Yes.
Okay. And the same gentleman, I think Mr. James Hayes, came over and took all that stuff.
Yes.
So just within a couple of days of not hearing from Taylor Wright, you wanted all her stuff gone.
Yes.
Can I have one moment?
I texted somebody about the temperature. Are y'all, everybody kind of okay, but we got a few that are cold. And unfortunately, once you go to the other extreme, you're going to start peeling clothing off, and that's fraught with potential danger.
I need access.
Can you put them on your card? Mr. Jensen, your support right? Is that your card? Well,
No, he can't see. Okay, look.
Shut him down.
How about right here?
all right, everybody good? We're good? Thank you, Mr. Dawson. All right.
Just a few more questions, Ms. Waller. The reason you got the gun from Ashley McArthur is because you were scared of Taylor Wright at that time. And in all the times that you saw Ashley McArthur and Taylor Wright together, you never heard, saw anything to indicate to you that Ashley McArthur was threatening to harm Taylor Wright, causing her, going to cause her any physical harm, anything like that.
No.
And no indication that Taylor Wright was scared of or anything like that?
No.
No further questions.
All right, redirect, Ms. Johnson.
When Mr. Brossett was asking you about guns, is there a certain reason why you didn't use Taylor's?
I don't know how to use a semi-automatic.
Okay, what kind of gun did Taylor or did Ashley McArthur bring you?
A revolver.
Now let's talk about being scared of Taylor Wright. Was Taylor Wright ever violent with you?
Never.
Did she do anything to make you fear her?
Never.
Who put that fear in your head?
Jeff.
The person that she was going through this contentious court proceeding with.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Brossett was asking you about this meeting at Twin Peaks on September 7th. And he said Taylor wasn't demanding or yelling or whatever that line of questioning was about her money. Okay. But he asked you if she said, "Why are you making it so difficult to get my money?" And you said she did say that.
In different words.
Okay, well, what was the conversation?
She had told me leading up to that night.
Don't talk about what Taylor told you leading up to, just answer Ms. Johnson's question.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, at Twin Peaks, Mr. Brossett had asked you if Taylor said something like, "Why are you making it so difficult to get my money?" And you said, yes, Taylor did say that.
She did. Okay, so what did she say? She felt like Ashley was making it hard to get her money. She kept making excuses.
You said that you thought Ashley arrived at your home that morning in a Jeep.
That's what I remember.
Okay. Is that the vehicle that you normally saw Ashley in whenever you did see her?
Yes.
Okay. Is it possible it was a different car?
Yeah.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
All right, is she free to go?
Judge, I would allow her to be released from the courthouse, but she could be subject to recall.
Okay. Okay. All right, you're free to leave the courthouse. Don't talk about your testimony, but we may call you, and if we call, you need to come back, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Jensen, call your next witness.
Singles Kara Britt.
Do one more witness. Won't be as long, I don't think. Not that long of a witness, is it? Is this person, Ms. Jensen, how long is this witness?
I'm not very well considered.
Okay. Everybody okay? One more witness? One more witness? All right, thank you, Mr. Beard. Ma'am, did I already swear you in this morning? Yes, ma'am. All right, just have a seat. State your name, please.
Kara Britt.
And just make sure you keep leaning in towards that microphone, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Will you state your name, please?
Kara Britt,
And Ms. Britt, what is your date of birth?
3/16/60.
What do you do for a living?
Odds and ends. Self-employed.
And where do you live?
Middleborough, Florida.
Where is that in relation to Pensacola?
It's about 5.5 hours away between Jacksonville and Gainesville.
Are you related to this defendant seated over here, Ashley Britt McArthur?
Yes, ma'am.
How so?
I am her aunt. My husband and her father are brothers.
And do you know her father's name?
John R. Britt, which is John Radcliffe.
Okay, can you spell that?
I'm not quite sure of the spelling because I don't know if it's Radcliffe or Radliff. I think it's Radliff.
Okay.
I had a good friend named Cliff, so I can confuse him.
Okay, Ms. Britt, do you own any local property in this area?
Yes, ma'am.
And where is it?
It's located at 2201 Britt Road in Cantonment.
Your last name is Britt. Is this road named after your family?
Correct.
Is that property located within Escambia County, Florida?
Yes, ma'am.
Give the jurors just a general description of that property.
We've owned it for 38, 39 years. It's 23 acres. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to live on it because my husband's job moved us. I love the place. It's gorgeous. I work very hard to keep it very maintained.
Describe what's on the property.
The property has a 3-acre lake on it. It has a huge red barn, 2-story barn. It has a mobile home. It's got a 3-boarded wooden fence as you enter. It has horses on it. It's got several pastures, pecan trees, large pecan trees. It's a place you just want to go have a glass of lemonade.
All right. And have you had a chance to review some aerial photographs of your property before today?
Yes, ma'am.
marked to states 8 and 9. You'll just take a look at those to see if you recognize them.
Yes, ma'am.
And are those fair and accurate visuals of your property on Britt Road?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, at this time, I move states 8 and 9 into evidence.
Okay.
Received as 8 and 9.
And permission to publish?
You may.
Watch your eyes. Right. If I give you a pointer, would you mind?
Oh, no, that'd probably be help. Okay. You want me to describe it now?
Sure. This is state's exhibit number 8 for the record.
Well, obviously that's Burt Road. You always come to the end. This is an asphalted driveway up until this area. That's where we park our cars. This is our mobile home with a nice size awning and a deck on it. All these lines that you see here is all boarded, 3-boarded fence. Obviously that's the lake. There's a pier, there's a gazebo there. Lots of big pecan trees. You can't see them. This is a horse ranch arena. This is our barn. In our barn, you really can't tell it, but this center area is a 2-story barn. And it's got this over here and this over here. Those 2 sections are like large awnings. So they're open to the outside. The inside in here and the 2-story part of it is all closed in, and you can only get access to that by key. And there's a huge gate right here. Everything is always locked. So unless you know me and I specifically hand you a key, you cannot get in. Yes, ma'am, because she was boarding horses. It's a horsing facility.
Okay, and along the left side, on the left side of the barn, is that the property line for the next person?
Yes, everything that you see cleared is our property. It's a long rectangle.
This is state's exhibit number 9, and is this just a closer up area of the property?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, was anyone living on that property? Was anyone living on that property back in August, September, October of 2017?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and who was living there?
My son,
What's your son's name?
Kyle.
What's his last name?
I'm sorry, Kyle Brett.
And how long had your son been living on the property?
The end of July, I came over with him and we moved him over from Gainesville. He was going from Gainesville College to UWF. And so at the end of July, we moved him over. We came in on a Friday, we unpacked him on a Saturday, and we left on a Sunday.
Now, back in August, September, October, did you come to Pensacola periodically?
Yes, ma'am, at that time, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And were you maintaining the property out there?
Yes, ma'am.
You had mentioned that Ashley had a horse on that property?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and in September of 2017, how long had she had a horse out there?
She's had a horse out there, not the same horse, 2 different horses for the last 7 years.
Now, did you have a wedding out there in 2017?
Yes, ma'am. My son got married there.
When was that?
That was in April.
And did Ashley attend that wedding?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, in the first part of September, was Ashley doing any type of work out there that you knew of?
Ashley never worked out there.
Do you know about a hammock that was on your property?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, tell the jurors about a hammock.
I was in town in February because my future daughter-in-law was having a bridal shower. So we were also lining up, because it's the traveling so much, we were lining up venue stuff along with that shower. So we had several companies come out, music, caterers, whatever.
Okay, let me focus down here.
Yes, no, right. So we were doing things for the wedding, and the hammock was out there that shouldn't have been out there.
Okay.
And it was hanging in the trees. So I walked out, I didn't know whose it was, and I took it down because it was going to be in the way of our theme.
Where'd you put it?
I rolled it up and I put it under a bench, under the awning part of the barn, because I didn't know whose it was at that time. And
Okay, my question was, where'd you put it?
I put it on the bench.
Just trying to answer.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you're
this is tough.
nervous. I
This is
know
tough.
you're nervous.
I just put it on the bench outside the barn, under the awning.
Thank you, ma'am. And can you describe the hammock for the jurors?
Yes, ma'am. Blue, green, purple color, mainly blue. It was parachute-like. I know that because the wind caught it.
Did it seem like it was heavy or kind of lightweight material?
If I can carry it, it's lightweight. I'm getting older.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Brett. Those are all my questions.
All right, Mr. Barry Barosset's going to ask you questions, and if they're just yes or no, please answer yes or no.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody okay?
cross your eyes, and I'm gonna put see if you get clear.
Okay. Let's see, just show me this switch. Okay. Okay, good. Let's see. Good afternoon, Ms. McArthur. I'm Barry Barossett. How you doing?
I'm Miss
Oh,
Britt.
excuse me, Ms. Britt, excuse me. You said you've owned the property out there for over 30 years, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And during that time, you created a real pretty venue, did you not?
We created that prior to leaving. It was created that way prior to leaving.
Prior to
It
leaving
looks,
what?
it looks that exact same way when we left 38 years ago. Nothing's changed.
Okay.
Ma'am, just move that microphone. Just take it in your hand up here. Don't,
Oh,
yes,
just-
just pull it to you.
Okay, perfect.
And that way you don't have to be in the light.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
All
you.
right.
And the property is well maintained to this day, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And in September, it was well maintained as well.
Yes, sir.
Now, what I'd like to do, you say this is a pointer?
Here-
Okay, this is Britt Road, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you come into your property, there's a little road here that goes to a parking area, correct?
Yeah.
Right along
Yes.
there. Now, what is this right there? This building?
I didn't see a red light. What is that?
Yes,
That's our mobile home. that
okay.
sits there.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
I'd like to show you what's been marked as defense exhibit number 1 for identification.
Okay.
Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of what it purports to be?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to offer defense exhibit number 1 into evidence.
Judge, I know it's a case, but the state has no objection.
All right, received as defense exhibit. one.
Okay. And would you hold that up and tell the jury what that is, please? Yes.
This is a picture. This is a picture of our mobile home.
Okay. And that's the first building that you come to, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, you also talked about a barn, I believe, and if I'm not mistaken, the barn is right there, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna switch to the next one if I'm going the right way, to the right here. Okay. Is that a close-up of the barn?
Yes, sir.
What's on this side of the barn right here?
That whole sign is a long awning with open paddocks on it.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I'd like to show you what's been marked as defense exhibit number 2. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of that side of the barn?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to offer defense exhibit number 2 into evidence.
Judge, I have no objection.
Received as defense two.
Ms. Britt, would you hold that up as well for the jury, and they'll have this later to see? I'm sorry, Your Honor.
That light.
Okay. And what that is you're looking this direction, correct? Look up here on the screen, I'm sorry. This direction into that paddock area?
Yes, sir.
And in the paddock area is where you said you saw or put the parachute, is that correct?
No, sir.
No, where did you put it? I'm sorry.
It was on a bench. It was on a bench that sits in that corner right there.
Okay, on this side right here.
Opposite side, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I'd like to show you, I'm going to show you a couple photos, but first of all, I'm going to show you defense exhibit number 3. Do you recognize defense exhibit number 3?
Yes, sir.
And that is also a photo of the paddock area?
Yes, sir.
Is it fair and accurate representation?
For that side of the barn, yes, sir.
Okay, good. I'd like to offer defense exhibit 3 into evidence.
No objection.
Received as defense three.
And Ms. Brett, would you please hold that up? Okay. Now, am I correct in that photo there that you are looking in this direction?
Correct.
In other words, you're looking from the trailer toward that section, correct?
You would see that description, yes.
Okay. Now, you're very particular about this property, are you not? You like to keep it very neat.
Yes, sir.
And how many times would you say you've been out on that property, say from, you said April, you went there and Ashley McArthur attended a wedding to your brother or your son, Carl,
Correct.
and the whole family was there, is that right?
Correct.
How many times do you believe that you went out to the property up through, say, October of 2017?
My goal was to be there every other weekend, but that didn't happen. I was approximately there maybe 3 to 4 times.
And was one of those times in early August when your son moved in? About August the
I
5th?
drove him over there and delivered him that weekend in July 1st of August. I know,
Answer
it's
the
hard.
question.
That's okay.
Re-ask the question.
Was it approximately August the 5th when he moved in?
No, sir.
Did you bring him over around that period of time of August the 5th? Or did you come over that weekend, do you
No,
recall?
sir.
When do you recall bringing him over the first time to set up the trailer?
The weekend I came over was the last weekend of July, first weekend of August. I don't recall that date. I want to say it was like the 29th,
Okay, last week of
July.
July, first week of August. So sometime before August the 5th.
It was before then, yes, sir.
And did he move in at that time?
No, sir.
What was the purpose of coming over then?
We just brought his belongings over and unpacked his boxes on that Saturday.
Okay. You moved some of his personal effects in, but he didn't move in himself.
Correct.
And then when was the next time you think you came over?
The next time after that was probably in I'm going to say sometime in August, later in August.
And is that about the time that he moved in right before school?
He moved in about 10 days prior to school starting. I don't recall that date.
Was he moved in there by the end of August or the 1st of September?
Yes, sir.
And did you come over during that period of time?
Yes, sir.
And on these occasions when you came over, it was not unusual for you to come over and see Miss McArthur, is that correct?
She would see me, yes.
She would see you?
Yeah, right, because we'd text back and forth and she would always want to come
Okay.
see me because I was doing wedding.
Ma'am?
I know,
Ma'am?
this is tough.
Ma'am,
Yes.
it's easy. Just answer the question. Don't tell the whole story.
Okay.
Thank you.
You do see Ashley McArthur in the courtroom, do you not?
Yes,
Would you point to her? Is that your niece?
yes,
Let the record reflect that she's. You had a good relationship with Miss McArthur, did you not?
yes,
You had a very good relationship, I think. You described it as a wonderful, great, good
Good.
connection.
yes,
Is that true?
yes,
And many times when you'd come over, she'd bring you breakfast,
yes,
and sometimes you'd meet for dinner.
yes,
And so it was not unusual for you to see each other, whether she came over to see you or vice versa, correct?
Yes.
So you had what you call a good connection.
yes.
Now, do you recall, did you come to the farm anytime after the first part of August? You know, end of July, first part of August. Did you come after that time?
Okay, ask your question again.
After July, end of July, 1st of August, when he moved in his effects, did you come back again?
After, yes.
Do you remember approximately when?
It was more towards the end of August and in September and in October.
Okay. Did you also come in September, like September the 22nd from Savannah, Georgia?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you ever meet a person by the name of Taylor Wright?
No, sir.
Did you ever become aware of Taylor Wright missing?
No, sir.
When you came in September, did you go out to your property on Britt Lane?
Yes, sir.
And did you stay there?
Yes, sir.
How many days did you stay there?
I only stayed for weekends. I was meeting brides.
You were meeting brides?
Yes.
So when you were there, it was not uncommon for you to be on the property, in the barn, correct?
Yes.
All over the property, in the trailer?
I wouldn't use those words all over the property. No, I was focused on a wedding venue. I was doing work, business.
Where was the wedding venue mainly?
Mainly was probably from this point here, that direction, all of this. Brides would put things over here. The gazebo was used, and on the back side of the property down here, it gets more of a natural look. Okay. Not this area, no.
But is it fair to say that you did maintain the property when you were there? Worked on the property?
With lawnmowers and chainsaws, yes, sir.
Okay. And in October, this fence line here, did you trim branches along here?
One tree, yes.
One
So I
tree?
didn't, yes, sir. I didn't trim up the property line, no, sir.
Let me show you a photo. There's two photos that are marked Defense Exhibit number 4 and 5 for identification. I'd like you to look at these photos. And Defense Exhibit number 4 purports to be a view from your barn here, looking this way. Do you recognize that?
Do I recognize these?
Number 4.
Yes, sir.
You do recognize that?
Right, it's property line.
Okay. And do you see where there's some brush had been trimmed right in this area?
Do I see that?
Yeah, on the photo.
I guess.
Do you recall telling people that you had trimmed brush right along here, tree limbs?
One tree, about 3 branches. So I didn't trim up trees, no, just one
You used it,
large. I use a chainsaw and stick is what I call it. Yes, sir.
and does that look like the area, number 4, where you trimmed?
Oh, definitely not. No, sir.
Definitely not?
Definitely not. No, no, I did not. The tree I worked on is, you can't even see it in this picture. The tree I cut's not even in this picture.
Okay, where was the tree you cut?
It's down here.
Well, that,
It's down here. See all this tree right here? There's a fence in there. See this fence? That fence runs on that line. I trimmed the tree back in here.
would you look at the
Not
fence
in
exhibit? Would you look at the fence exhibit number 4?
Yes.
Isn't there a fence there?
Yes, sir. It runs that whole property line. I'm not following the question.
My question is, did you trim along that fence line?
In this picture? No, sir, I did not.
But you recognize that picture as being one that's right here, correct?
That picture is right in here.
Okay.
What I cut is that down here.
Like Alfred and Devin.
See, it's defense for you.
I'd like you to look at fence exhibit number 5. Do you know what that purports to be?
What was your question?
Do you know what that photograph purports to be?
Yeah, it's a picture of the property line.
Okay. And do you recall when I came out to visit you?
Yes.
And look at the property line, and you took me along here, this area? We walked your property.
Right.
Do you remember walking along here?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember showing me where the remains of Taylor Wright were found?
You asked me and I figured, yes, sir.
And did you show me?
Yes, sir.
And does that picture in defense exhibit number 5 purport to be that area?
I guess. I haven't made it a mental note of it.
I'd like to offer that in evidence.
All right. Received as defense number 5.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Britt, will you agree with me that the location of the remains of Taylor Wright were approximately there?
No, sir, they weren't.
Okay, where were they?
They were more up this right there.
Well, I said approximately, right there, you're saying.
Okay, well,
Okay,
that's a little more, okay.
that is probably 30 feet from the out edge of the barn, isn't it?
I've never measured it.
Well,
I-
you've walked it. Is it 10
You mean from
feet?
there to there?
Yes,
It'd probably be, yeah, probably 30 feet, okay.
okay. And this is the trailer, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry, yeah.
I'm
my bad.
referring, and
Yes.
when I say this, I'm referring to state exhibit number 9 we've been talking about.
Mhm.
This fence line and this blow up of it is defense exhibit number 9. What is this right here? This
Oh,
portion,
Where's defense exhibit 9?
right, this is it up here, Your Honor.
Okay, that would be states.
Oh, excuse me, I'm correct. I'm incorrect.
Let me make
State
sure.
exhibit 9.
Okay.
I apologize, Your
Sure,
Honor.
just trying to make sure record's clear.
I understand. Thank you, Your Honor. This is till October, when you trimmed some things along here, and you said, I think that was what weekend did you trim that?
I trimmed that the 15th or the 16th of October.
Okay. During all those times when you were out there,
Uh-huh.
did you ever see anything such as blood anywhere?
No, sir.
In the barn? Did you see any drag marks on the property?
No, sir.
Did you see anything that would indicate that anyone was murdered on your property?
No, sir. I would never even think that.
I understand you wouldn't think it, but obviously if you were out there and everything during this period of time, you would have noticed that something was unusual, wouldn't you?
In a heartbeat, I'd notice something unusual, but
Ma'am, don't
I know,
talk.
yeah, it's hard stuff.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yes, sir.
Because this area is almost like a park area. It's well trimmed, well maintained.
Yes, sir.
Your son, Kyle, developed a good relationship with Ashley, did he not?
It's his cousin. I would say yes to that.
I mean, during the time that he lived there, from probably sometime near the end of August through October, they had a good relationship, correct?
You'd have to ask him.
You recall describing as they had a good time.
I've never been asked that until this second.
Pardon?
You've never asked me that until this second, so I can't answer that.
Well,
We're cousins, so I
was it
guess.
such a relationship that he would hang out with her at the Sticks Lounge? Or
Most
Sticks
definitely, he
Pool?
was wanting to meet family, if that's what you're asking. Yes, we have a lot of family here.
And in fact, you even went out to the Sticks Lounge, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And you didn't particularly care for it, did you?
No, I didn't. I got tired of talking about, well, never mind. Yes or no? Yes. This is tough.
Are you close, Mr. Barasa? Because otherwise I need to give the jury.
I am close, Your Honor.
Okay.
Let me check with John a second. I think
Okay.
we're very close.
Okay.
I think I'm just about ready. I'm just looking, breeze through these a little bit and look at my notes. Thank you.
Mr. Barossa said, or something to the effect of you didn't find anything unusual out there at the times you were out on the property, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you looking for anything unusual?
No, ma'am.
Were you looking for a dead body?
No, ma'am.
And did anyone, or not anyone, did you really pay a whole lot of attention to this property line to the left of the barn?
Honestly speaking, I don't focus on that. This side here. My pointer quit working. I don't look that way. I look at the pretty parts of the property.
Okay, so again, my question was, did you really pay a whole lot of attention to
No,
this
ma'am.
property line? No, ma'am. Okay, and then the fence that runs along that property line, does it stop right where I'm pointing right about here?
Yes, ma'am. That's a corner post.
All right. Now, Mr. Bross had asked you if on October 15th or October 16th, when you were out there, if you saw any blood or any drag marks. Do you remember that?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he said there was nothing to indicate that someone had been murdered?
Right.
Right. Okay. Well, there was a body found out there, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
All right, is she free to go or is she,
Let me check with Mr. Bross.
okay? And then folks, we're going to take a break. Just hang on one second, okay?
That's not working, Judge. I couldn't get it.
Okay, don't,
Motion.
just leave it there.
Yes, ma'am.
She can be released from the state under defense.
All right, you're completely released, but don't discuss your testimony, okay? Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, everybody's getting up. I'm going to do this very quickly. You leave your notepads and pencils. You're free to talk about anything, including how wonderful the judge is, but don't discuss the case. All right, we'll be back at 5 to 11. Pick up where we left off. You may go. All right.
Circuit Court is reconvened. May be seated. Maintain order in the court.
I'm going to give her number to my assistant out there to call her. See where she is.
Okay. All right, we're back on the record. State of Florida versus Ashley McArthur, case 17 CF 5844. The defendant is present with counsel. Assistant State Attorney is present. Anything from the state?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. John Barasa?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. There is an issue I guess the court should start thinking of. It's not our next witness. Our next witness is going to be Rhonda Britt, but after that, we're going to call a woman named Kay Townley. The purpose of calling her is she worked with Mrs. McArthur at physical automatic amusement.
Can I interrupt you?
I'm sorry.
Can I interrupt you? I'm good.
Okay. You good?
Yeah.
She's good.
So no issue.
Doesn't sound like there's an issue.
So what we're going to do as far as the plan is you call witnesses. When you're done calling witnesses, then if you want to say, Judge, can we have a moment? I can send the jury out. We can talk about, give you a moment to talk with your client and announce a decision. I'm going to ask some questions about testifying, not testifying. If that works for y'all. Okay, maybe the witness is on. Okay, so if we're ready, we have at least one witness out there, right? Three. Okay, let's go. All right. Who's handling those witnesses?
I'm handling Kay Townley and I'm also handling Patrick Smith.
Okay, so we're going
Giving
to,
the names of the state.
okay, and so first witness is Rhonda Britt, so that's Mr. Barry Barasa. Okay. All right. All right, and for the record, defendant is present with counsel. Assistant State Attorney is present. Mr. Barry Barosset, call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Brought the witness, please.
Raise your right hand, ma'am. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? If so, say I do. All right, have a seat. All right, now you can pull that microphone down. Just put your hand there, pull it down, pull up close to it. Just because I can tell you're soft-spoken. State your name and spell your last name.
Rhonda Britt, Britt.
Okay, you may inquire.
Hello, Mrs. Brett. Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what your relationship is to our client,
She's my daughter.
Ashley McArthur? She's your daughter? And when was she born?
August 22nd, 1977.
And let me ask you this. She grew up in your household, correct?
Yes, sir.
She's one of how many children? Okay. And during the time that she grew up, I take it you had a close relationship with her and probably still do today, correct?
Very nice.
Would you tell me, did you become aware of of an automobile accident that occurred in, I think approximately 2010?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's okay. Didn't mean to bump it. You're doing great on speaking up. You don't have to quite get that. It's okay. Thank you. Maybe I ought to move it a little bit. Move it a little higher, but still lean in. Okay, yeah, it was your germs.
We had some records introduced, and I think at that time, her name was Ashley Britt Nix. Is that correct?
Yes,
Was she married to one of the Nixes,
Philip Nix.
Philip Nix? Have you had occasion to observe her over the years since 2010 as a result of being around her, sometimes at work and other places?
Yes.
How often would you say daily you saw your daughter?
I either saw her or talked to her every day.
And were you aware of any problems that she had with her back as a result of that accident?
Yes.
Can you tell me if you're aware, what if any limitations that had on her?
Oh, yes. She can lift heavy things. It would hurt her back if she did. She'd walk funny and you could tell she was in pain. So yeah, she had been having back trouble since the accident.
Have you ever seen her at your home?
Yes.
How about the automatic amusement?
Oh, yes.
Have you
Yes.
seen her there as well?
Yes.
You don't work there any longer, do you?
No.
But during the times that you saw her there, did you see her ever lift any heavy objects?
No, she tried not to because it hurt her back.
If she did strain her back, how could you tell that?
Well, you could tell the way she walked. She'd walk sideways and it's just a different walk. You're walking like this.
Has she, to your knowledge, ever had any surgery since that time?
No, they told her that she'd probably have to have surgery at some point, but they didn't want to do it then because she was young.
And have you ever seen her lift anything like a 50 pounds concrete bag or anything that heavy?
No.
And is that to this day?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Britt, you don't know what your daughter did when you weren't around, now did you?
That would be impossible.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No further questions.
Is she free, completely released?
Yes, she is.
You're released, ma'am. You're free to go. Thank you. Don't discuss your testimony. Call your next witness.
Kay Townley.
All right. Kay Townley. All right, ma'am, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Okay, have a seat. Pulling up to the microphone. State your name and spell your last name.
Marla K. Townley, Townley.
You may inquire.
Good afternoon, ma'am. What do most people that know you refer to you by? What do they call you?
K.
You go by Kay?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the jury what do you do for a living?
I work at Pensacola Automatic Amusement.
And they've heard a little bit about that business, but what does Pensacola Automatic Amusement do?
They have like pool tables and jukeboxes in different location bars or game rooms.
How long have you worked for Pensacola Automatic Amusement approximately?
About 6 years.
And can you kind of describe for the jury what your duties and responsibilities are for Pensacola Automatic Amusement?
I collect the money out of the machines and make sure everything's working. And if I have to move equipment, move it wherever it needs to go.
Through your employment at Pensacola Automatic Amusement, did you get the opportunity to meet my client, Ashley McArthur?
Yes, sir.
Is it fair to say you've known her, if you've been working there about 6 years, so you've known Mrs. McArthur, give or take 6 years?
Yes, sir.
And over the years, since you've been working there, you still work there today, correct?
Yes, sir.
Have y'all had an opportunity to work together at times?
Yes, sir.
As part of your job, do expand on that a little more, do you go to these local businesses and collect money on the machines?
Yes, sir.
And if there's a machine that's broken, do you fix it yourself or try to?
Try to, yeah.
And you also mentioned moving machines. Why would you need to move a machine? Can you explain that to us?
Like if something's broken, it can't be fixed there, you got to take it back, or if a location shuts down, or they hire somebody else, you have to take our stuff out. And
Would sometimes a venue want to, like, instead of having one arcade game, want a different arcade game, and y'all switch them out or something like that? Would that happen on occasion?
just switch them out. Yes, sir.
The work that you do for Pensacola Automatic Amusement, at times, is it physically demanding?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what makes your job physically demanding at times?
Some of them machines is heavy. And
Okay.
even the quarters that I carry sometimes are, you get $400 or $500 in quarters, it gets kind of heavy.
Okay, so you'll go into a business, take the money out, and then have to carry it somewhere, bank or whatever?
Well, it usually gets to the car and then we'll go to the bank.
Okay, all right. During your time that you've known Ashley McArthur and y'all worked together, from your observations of her, did you ever notice her appear to have back issues or problems?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about that? What did you see that made you, think that there's something wrong with her back?
Me personally, my back hurts every once in a while.
Uh-huh.
And when it does, you get this walk. And she had to walk a few times.
Okay. These machines that you would move, you mentioned they were quite heavy. I'm assuming that included pool tables, correct?
Yes, sir.
A jukebox, would
Yes,
y'all move those? Video games?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At times, would you have to by yourself move those machines? Some of them?
Yes, sir.
How would you do that?
Usually I try to get help.
Okay, but if you don't have help, how do you move them? Do you use a dolly or anything?
Yes, sir. I had dollies.
You mentioned that times obviously you would need help. With those big moves, was Ashley McArthur ever helping you with moving the big equipments?
Usually we had to move something unless we get somebody else.
Who were some people that she would bring to help you move these machines?
There was Zach's brother, Jake.
And let's just Zach's brother Jake. Are you referring to Zach McArthur?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who else would you get?
There's a guy that lived at the shop, James Hayes.
James Hayes. Okay.
And then with Sam, I don't know her last name, but she used to work out there at Sticks Pool Hall. She
Okay.
helped quite a bit.
All right. So it sounds like in moving these equipments where you needed help, Ashley McArthur would make sure other people came out there to help you.
Yes, sir.
May I have one moment? No further questions.
Ms. Johnson? And ma'am, if it's a yes or no, just answer yes or no.
Ms. Talley, are you familiar with adrenaline?
Yeah.
Okay. What is adrenaline to you?
It just was like something scares you and you just jump up and go faster, or just when you get excited about something.
And can it make you do stuff that you couldn't normally do?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
No regret.
Is she completely released?
She's released from our
You're free to go? Yes, ma'am. Somebody is happy with something I said. All right, ma'am, just don't comment on the way out. Just keep moving. All right, call y'all's next witness.
Patrick Smith.
Okay. All right, whose phone was that? Ma'am, turn off your phone. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? If so, say I do. Have a seat. Pull up to the microphone. State your name and spell your last name.
Patrick Smith, SMITH.
Good afternoon, sir. Mr. Smith, what do you do for a living?
I was doing HVAC. I'm currently unemployed at the moment.
Okay. How old are you, Mr. Smith?
22.
Are you from this area?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sitting over his table is my client, Ashley McArthur. Do you somewhat know her?
Known her for about maybe 6 months during that time.
All right. So were y'all close friends or anything like that?
We hung out. I'd shoot pool at Sticks regularly, so we talk regularly.
Apologize for interrupting. That was going to be my next question. How did you meet or somewhat get acquainted with Ashley McArthur?
Through Brandon.
I'm sorry?
Through Brandon.
Brandon who?
Beatty.
Okay.
I was shooting pool by myself one night, and it's getting close to closing time. He approached me, asked me if I wanted a drink.
Okay. So you met Mrs. McArthur from spending time shooting pool up at Sticks Billiards?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you know a young man named Kyle Britt?
Yes, sir.
How do you know Kyle Britt?
I know him from Sticks.
I want to draw your attention to around September 9th, 2017. It was a Saturday. Did you and a bunch of people, including Mrs. McArthur, Kyle Britt, kind of go out and have a really good time?
Yes, sir.
All right, you remember that night?
Yes,
At least some of it?
Yeah.
Okay. I think there was a couple strip clubs, bars, correct?
Yeah.
Was that the first night that you had met Kyle Britt, do you think?
I'm not completely sure. I'd like to give you the most accurate answer
Please-
I could, but I'm
please
not
do.
sure.
Okay. After meeting and getting to know Kyle Britt, did there come an occasion where you were hired to do some work out on what we've been referring to as the Britt family farm, a piece of property off of Britt Road in Cantonment, Florida?
By Kyle? Yes, sir.
Okay. How did that come about? Tell us about that.
I was shooting pool one night. I'd recently got my business license to do lawn work. And he asked me if I did lawn work. I don't know if he knew I had a business license, but he asked me if I did lawn work. I said yes. He asked me how would I feel about weed eating the property for $80 and do it regularly.
All right, let me stop you right there. So after that night of partying, did in fact you go out to the Britt farm to do some work out there at the request of Kyle Britt?
I did.
All right. How did you go out there one time, more than one time to do work?
I believe I only went twice.
All right. Let's talk about the first time you went out there. Can you give us approximately how long after that good night y'all had approximately when you went out to the farm?
A few weeks maybe.
Okay.
Not completely sure.
Sure. And we understand it's an estimate. Tell the jury how it was that you ended up finding your way out to the farm that first time you went out there.
I went, can you
All right.
explain a little more? I'm
Sure.
confused.
Sure. No, it's okay. The first time you went out to the farm, did Ashley McArthur go with you?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did y'all meet at a gas station
Yes,
somewhere? All right. And did you see Ashley McArthur give or lend her vehicle to another person and kind of drive off?
Yes, sir.
Did you happen to see that person in this courthouse today?
Kind of looked like her little short afro fuzzy hair.
Okay. And so did you end up that day, did you end up driving Ashley McArthur out to the Britt farm?
I did.
Did you know how to get out there?
No.
So once you got out to the farm, were you given directions about what to do out there by anybody?
Yes.
Who gave you those directions?
Kyle.
Kyle Britt?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what was your scope of work? What were you supposed to do out there once you got out there and kind of saw what you were working with? Tell the jury about that.
I was supposed to weed eat, the perimeter, everywhere that a lawnmower couldn't get.
Yes,
Details
sir.
of picture.
Well, don't worry about
Oh,
that
I'm
right now.
sorry.
I want you to describe. You're supposed
Okay.
to weed eat.
Weed eated down the fence line, going down the driveway on both sides. Weed eated around the house. They had a little runaround pen where you'd keep a horse. Weed eat around that. They had a barn. I'd weed eat around that. They had trailers behind the barn. I'd weed eat around those. And pretty much just the general perimeter of the house and everywhere that a lawnmower could not get.
When you were given your scope of work, I'm assuming that day you did it. You did what was requested of you.
I did.
Okay. And when you got there that first time, did Kyle Britt and Ashley McArthur remain at the farm?
When I did the first time, yes, sir. No, they left.
Did you recall how they left the farm? Did Kyle Britt drive them away?
I believe it was Kyle's car. I believe it was Kyle driving. They said they had some errands to run, so they leave me to my work.
Okay. And so you were left out, as far as you know, you were out there on the farm by yourself.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Fair to say you probably were out there, give or take 2 hours?
Hour, give or take, maybe an hour and a half.
All right. Now, while you were out there doing your work, that first visit, did you notice anything like, let's just talk about, did you notice to see any blood anywhere?
No, sir.
Did you see any like what appeared to be drag marks where something heavy could have been moved anywhere?
No, sir.
Did you see any indications around the property where it looked like maybe recently concrete had been made or anything like that?
No, sir.
What about any potting soil that was, not in pots, but in a different location, kind of unusual location sitting out anywhere?
No, sir.
Did you see any discarded bags for concrete thrown in the woods or just in the lake or anywhere unusual like that?
No, sir.
What about discarded bags of potting soil anywhere unusual out there?
No, sir.
You mentioned that you went out there for a second work visit.
Yes, sir.
Approximately how much time passed from visit number 1 to visit number 2?
I'd say maybe early October.
Your second visit was in early October?
I'd say yes, sir.
Okay. And how did you get out there the second time?
I drove.
And when you got out there the second time, was Mr. Britt, Kyle Britt, out there?
No, sir. I believe he was with family in a different state.
Okay. And your scope of work the second time you were out there, what was that?
It didn't change. It was the same.
Spent approximately the same amount of time, an hour to an hour and a half out there?
Yes, sir.
And during this second visit, similar questions. Did you notice anything I've mentioned to you last time? Drag marks, blood, concrete, potting soil, anything like that?
No, sir.
Anything unusual that stuck out during that visit on the property? Now, focusing on visit 1 and 2, obviously when you were out there, did you know anything about a missing person at that time on either of those visits?
No, sir.
So were you looking for evidence of a crime when you were out there?
No, sir.
Now, the silly question, but I'm going to ask you, when you're doing your work, I'm assuming you want it to look what, good or bad?
Great.
Okay. So you're paying attention to what you're doing?
Yes, sir.
Trying to do the best job you can?
Yes, sir.
Are you trying to do detailed work?
I'm just trying to do the best job I can.
May I have one moment? Let's go back to the first visit. When you were out on the property, did you notice any unusual odors or smells that caught your attention?
No, sir.
What about the second visit?
No, sir.
First visit, any maggots or anything like that anywhere?
No, sir.
Second visit?
No, sir. Not a buzzard in the sky.
No further questions.
All right, Ms. Jensen's going to ask you questions. If it's just yes or no, just answer yes or no.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Smith, did you stay on Kyle's property? In other words, you didn't go on any of the other properties, correct?
No, ma'am.
Did you go outside the fence lines or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Is he completely released?
Completely released.
You're free to go.
Thank you.
Don't discuss your testimony. All right, who's our next witness?
Ms. Henselman?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Have a seat. Pull up to the microphone. State your name and spell your last name.
Nicole Heinzelman, Heinzelman.
And can you spell your first name also?
Nicole, Nicole.
You may inquire.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Henselman. Could you tell me what your occupation is?
I'm the crime scene supervisor at the Pensacola Police Department.
And I want to take you back to September and October of 2017. Were you still working with the Pensacola Police Department as a crime scene tech?
Yes, I was the crime scene supervisor at the time.
And what was your job at that time?
Crime scene supervisor.
Okay. Now, as the crime scene supervisor, did you have occasion to participate in any searches at the Raintree address?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember if you participated in one or more?
Just one.
And I think we've heard about a search that occurred on September the 18th, where the officers searched without a warrant. And then there was one on October 24th that we had testimony about. When was yours? Was yours on October the 19th?
It was.
Okay. And who went out there who went out there to search? Do you recall?
It was members of the Pensacola Police Department.
And was this pursuant to a search warrant, the first search warrant on the property?
I don't know whether it was the first search warrant or not. I know there was a search warrant.
And approximately how many people went out to conduct that search? Do you have any idea?
I don't.
More than 2 or 3?
Yes, there were several of us.
And what was your job at that particular time?
I went before the search had started and I documented the entire house, all the levels with digital photographs.
So you took photographs of everything in the house, is that correct?
I took photographs of the house.
How many photographs did you take?
I don't recall.
Well, you got an estimate?
Approximately maybe 100.
And do you have a report in there that reflects how many you took, or are you just going by memory?
I did not in my report indicate how many photographs I took.
Do you know how much evidence that was documented and collected?
I don't.
Do you have any idea of the approximate number of items that were collected?
From that search warrant, I personally did not collect any items.
But you documented it, correct?
I took photographs as the search was being conducted on the main level of the floor, the location of items of evidence, and other members of the Pensacola Police Department were the actual ones who collected them.
So of the 100 photographs that you took, some of those were evidence that they collected, is that correct?
Yes.
And by documenting, you mean you identify the object and take a photograph of it?
Yes.
Do you recall seizing any black shorts in the basement?
No.
Do you recall any of the items that you seized or that you extracted, that you documented?
I documented on the main level, there were some firearms, there was some receipts, there was some digital media, there were laptops.
Okay. Did you document any items in the basement?
I did not.
Who worked the basement, do you recall?
I think it was crime scene analyst Justin Cooper.
And once you document the evidence and photograph it, you said, I thought initially that you took photographs all over the house,
Yes, I did.
even in the basement?
Yes.
Was that part of the documentation?
Yes.
Are you aware of any evidence that was collected that was related or established that Miss McArthur killed Taylor Wright?
No.
I don't have any questions.
Is she completely released?
Yes.
You're free to go. Don't discuss your testimony. Thank you.
Do we have a moment, John?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I need to take up something outside your presence. If you can leave your notepads and pencils, and we'll be back with you as soon as we can. Do y'all want to go in the back and talk to her, or you want to talk to her there?
We've all decided, she decided, she does not prefer to testify.
Okay, I'm going to ask some questions. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? If so, say I do. All right, now speak up for me just so I can get a good record. State your name. All right, Ms. McArthur, have you had many opportunities to talk to your attorneys about a decision to testify or not testify? And then I think just an estimate, we took a break and maybe about 10 minutes you spent with them right now. Is that fair? About 5 to 10 minutes? All right. You understand that you have the absolute right to remain silent. No one can make you testify, and the jury is not to consider that at all in making a decision on whether you're guilty or not guilty. Do you understand? I will, in fact, give an instruction that tells them that, that they cannot consider that. Do you understand? There can be advantages to testifying and disadvantages to testifying. Have you talked to your attorney about those? This is one of those decisions. There's about 4 that the defendant herself gets to make at the end of the day. Mr. Barossa said we all agree. But at the end of the day, it's your decision. Do you want to testify? Is anybody forcing you or threatening you into not testifying? Is this your free will decision? And are you on any medication today? Alcohol, illegal drugs? Is there anything affecting your ability to understand what we're doing? Okay. Then when the jury comes back in, I'm going to announce or say Mr. Barry Barossa, and you just say defense rests, and we'll take it from there. Ms. Jensen, do you plan to call witnesses?
I do.
Okay, then we'll just proceed there, and when we get to the next stopping point, we'll stop, okay?
For the truth, second, can I just?
Sure.
While they're out there, are only exhibits in through Dr. Roberts, I believe 10 exhibits total? Or 11 or 12? 12, I read it.
All right, for the record, defendant is present. With counsel, assistant state attorney is present, Mr. Barry Barossa.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense rests.
All right, Ms. Jensen, do you have any,
Yes, ma'am. State call or recalls Detective Gigliotti.
Judge Jensen, I approach the court orderly.
okay, you're still under oath from yesterday. State your name.
Richard Gigliotti.
I've got a new court reporter, so please spell your last name.
Yes, Ghigliotty.
You may inquire.
Detective Gigliotti, you testified earlier about the cell phone download from Miss McArthur's phone
From the October 2017 date.
Correct.
Okay. And did you also see some photos of Miss McArthur doing various physical activities on different dates?
I did.
Here are my approach witness. I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit 159. You just take a look through that and see if you recognize those images.
I do.
Okay, and are those photos from Ms. McArthur's cell phone, again, from the October 2017 phone?
They are.
Judge, at this time, I move State's 159 into evidence.
Received as states 159.
So this is the first page, and is this just again showing the identifying information from Ms. McArthur's phone?
It is.
This is going to be page 2104 of these records, and if you look at this line at the bottom, 1126, are you looking?
Yes,
If you click on that link, does this picture become bigger?
it does.
And is that the image from page 2104?
It is.
This is page
3106, line 6979.
Yes,
And is this an image from line 6979?
it is.
This is page 3332, line 8752.
Correct.
And actually, let me back up. I meant to ask you for the date. What is the capture date on the image on page 2104?
Capture date is October 15th, 2016, marked at 11:21 a.m.
And then this image on page 3106, what's the capture date on that? You don't have to do the time, just the date.
November 27th, 2016.
This is page 3332, line 8752. And is this the image for that line?
It is.
This is page 3378, line 9115 at the top. Is this the image for that page?
It is.
This is page 3397, line 9269. Is this the image for that line?
It is.
This is page 5879, line 28223. Is this the image for that page?
It is.
This is page 6300, line 31300. Is this the image for that page?
It is.
Can you read that first green bubble, please?
Sure. I stayed at my house and had Kyle pick me up there this morning. He helps Kay and I move machines.
This is page 6567, line 33121. Is this the image for that page?
It is.
This is page 3142, line 7214. And can you see the capture date on that?
April 2nd, 2016.
And is that the image?
It is.
This is page 6023, line 29330. Is that the image?
It is.
This is page 3145, line 7241. Is this the image for that page?
It is.
This is page 2781, line 4997. What's the capture date on that?
April 1st, 2017.
And is this the image for that?
It is.
On page 2840, line 5347. Is this the image for that page?
It's 5367.
Yes, 5367.
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay, what's the capture date on that image?
November 12th, 2016.
And does this appear to be at the very top of a football stadium or something?
It is.
Thank you, those are all my questions.
Mr. John Barros, it's going to ask you questions. Remember, if it's yes or no, answer yes or no.
Good afternoon. Good to see you again.
Yes.
Did you find any pictures and all going through this of Mrs. McArthur carrying anything
I believe there was some of her carrying guns.
on a, with a shoulder strap? Other than that,
A lot of pictures, so nothing I can.
old case, right? You've had time to look through it.
Yes, correct.
Okay. May seem, but when that first picture you showed of her scuba diving, you ever been scuba diving?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You ever been in the water?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you're in the water, it's buoyant. It keeps you up.
Yes, sir.
Okay. No further questions.
Nothing further.
Is he completely released? You're completely released. Don't discuss your testimony. But leave your exhibit. Yes. All right, Ms. Jensen.
State recalls Jeff Brown.
All right, you're still under oath. Have a seat. Pull up to the microphone. State your name.
Jeffrey Brown.
Okay. All right. This thing, rather than y'all leaving, I'm going to pop outside for a second. I'm not wandering off, but y'all sit tight. I am leaving the courtroom, but it'll be okay. And I'll be back in about 3 minutes. And that's just easier than y'all leaving and me. I just need to check on one thing quickly. And I'm going to ask everybody just remain seated and I'll be back. Okay. Y'all don't discuss the case. All right. Thank you.
Be seated, maintain order.
Ms. Jensen's just. Okay. State your name again.
Jeffrey Brown.
And I reminded you you were under oath.
Yes, ma'am.
Detective Brown, you testified earlier about Ashley McArthur's cell phone download from September of 2017.
Correct.
Okay. Did you also see some photographs of her doing some physical activities on different dates in the phone records?
Yes.
May I approach the witness? Showing you State Exhibit 160. Will you take a look through that and see if you recognize it?
No objection.
This receipt states 160. You may publish.
Right. This is the first page of 116. Is this just again the identifying information of McArthur's cell phone?
It is.
This is page 24555 and line, let's see, 2561. What is the capture date from this picture?
3/15/2015 at 3 p.m.
And is that the image for that page?
It is.
This is page 31130, line 71189. What's the capture date? You don't have to do the time, just the date.
9/23/2016.
And
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to say that I need you to step outside again, and we needed to discuss something outside your presence. I appreciate your patience with us. Just pads, pencils, don't discuss the case. Thank you. Okay, everybody have a seat and relax. I think I had described it at the bench, but just I had excluded a particular exhibit. Ms. Jensen had removed it from the physical exhibit, but did not think about removing it from the PowerPoint, and somehow it was clicked on. I think the state has asserted, and the defense does not disagree that it was an inadvertent. Correct, Mr. John Barasa?
Absolutely.
I think it was inadvertent. It went up. I estimated for a second, most 2 seconds, but it was shown. And I'm going to ask that Ms. Jensen, just since I've got my staff attorney in here, just put it up so she can see it, how it looked on the screen itself.
oh, I deleted it after I shut it down, but I have the picture itself.
But I think we probably need to make that part of the record anyways now.
Right, can. All right, so do you want to make that, why don't we make that a defense exhibit? You want to make a defense exhibit? That could be defense exhibit number 13, Mr. John Barasa.
Yes, ma'am.
It'll be received as defense 13. The reason I was asking that it be shown up there was not so that it went out on the media, but just so that Ms. Watson saw the size of the image as it went up there, but it's gone now. I think the question is that the defense needs to decide is what they're going, if any motion you're going to make.
Yes, Your Honor, as appropriate, again, I would make a motion for mistrial. It's clearly a highly prejudicial picture. We understand what this charge is about. She's alleged to have shot someone in the back of the head with a firearm. Pictures of it.
Ms. Jensen, do you have anything you want to say on the subject?
Judge, the only thing I would say is there has been so much testimony throughout this trial about Ms. McArthur owning firearms, giving firearms to Brandon Beatty. There's been pictures of firearms that have been given to him that she has texted. Not only the ones that are in pictures, but he testified about her giving him shotguns and ARs. And I mean, there's no question that Ms. McArthur has possessed firearms throughout this trial, which, I mean, not that that's a problem, but one picture of her in some camouflage that looks to be like a hunting picture. And it's not pointed at the camera, it's pointed at an angle. I don't think that is prejudicial enough to warrant a mistrial in this case.
And would both state and defense agree that already introduced to the jury in, I think, 160 and perhaps 159 are photos of her in camouflage with firearms maybe on her shoulder, meaning it's a shoulder harness and holding a rifle or shotgun. Would you agree, Mr. John Barras?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we're going to talk. I'll be back. Y'all may be seated.
In order.
All right, the court has considered the defense's motion for a mistrial. When I sustained the objection to what is now Defense Exhibit 13, I really sustained it in an abundance of caution. And it kind of fell in that category in my mind of, you know, I'm just going to err on the side of caution, sustain the objection, and keep it out. Ms. Jensen is correct, and I don't think anybody disputes what she said, that we've had all sorts of testimony about guns, her owning guns, her giving guns, and her hunting, and other photos of her with a shotgun. And it was a very brief flash of a second or two. So I'm going to find that it is not a basis for a mistrial and deny the motion for a mistrial. Now, if y'all want me to give a curative instruction of any kind, something was flashed on the screen, it's not to be considered as any evidence of the case, I can, or we can just move on. Please. Okay, I mean, you can tell me what you like, or I can just say that. Something flashed on the screen and it was inadvertent. That, all right, Mr. Frost, I'll give you one token for that.
You've been very good about talking to the jury and telling them their obligations. I just think with your instructions, you should tell them you've heard my instructions. This is not admissible evidence. You should not consider it in any way. Something to that effect.
Okay, well, I was going to say something flashed on the screen,
Right, yeah.
and that is not admissible, and you are not to consider it in any way. It was inadvertent.
Perfect.
Okay, I understand you still have your motion for mistrial, but since I've ruled, that's what I will do at your request. No, Mr. Barossett, you used your token. This is Mr. John Barossett's witness. Okay, are we otherwise ready to go?
Yes, ma'am.
Wait, I'm waiting to see if we're going to have to approach 5 seconds after they. Okay, they say they're ready. All right, everyone may have a seat. For the record, defendant is present, counsel, assistant state attorney is present. I hope y'all wore your Fitbits today because we've been getting a workout. Y'all have. I apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, something flashed on the screen that was inadvertent. It has not been admitted into evidence, and you are not to consider it in any way. We're moving on. Ms. Jensen, state your name again.
Jeffrey Brown.
All right, I'm going to turn off the lights again.
Thank you. Dr. Brown, this is page 31130. If you look at line 71189, what is the capture date for that image?
9/23/2016.
The capture date below that.
Sorry, 6/1/2016.
Okay. And is this the image for that page?
Yes.
This is page 31167, line 71436. And what is the capture date for this image?
5/30/2016.
And is that the image itself?
It is.
This is page 31226, line 71822. What is the capture date for that image?
4/2/2016.
And is that the image itself?
It is.
This is page 31231, line 71860. What is the capture date, or excuse me, the capture date for that image?
5/30/2016.
And is that the image?
It is.
This is page 31267, line 72099. What is the capture time or capture date?
8/5/2016.
Is that the image?
It is.
And is this another image on Ms. McArthur's phone for that same time frame?
Yes, there was.
page 31614, line 74389. What is the capture date?
7/8/2015.
And is this the image?
It is.
Lastly, this is page 33089, line 84084. What is the capture date?
5/31/2016.
And is that the image? Those are all my questions. Thank you.
All right, Mr. John Barossi. Is he completely released? You're completely released. Don't discuss your testimony.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I can't look at you because I have to tell you that we have to talk about stuff outside your presence. But when you come back in, that will be the last trip for today. So don't discuss the case. Please leave your notepad and pencil. I'm sorry for one more trip out of here, but we'll bring you back in, okay? Okay, let's just talk about the plan. But before that, Mr. Barry Barosset, do you need to say anything?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, we want to renew our motion for judgment of acquittal. Now, all the evidence is in, based upon the fact that we feel that there's no substantial evidence, especially proof beyond reasonable doubt, that she committed this homicide or that she planned it in a premeditated design. So we move for judgment of acquittal on that basis. We also, without going through the litany, we preserved a lot of issues in this case: pretrial limiting motions, motions to suppress, cell right records, motions to suppress statements. We reserve all of those and would renew our motion for mistrial on first degree.
Ms. Jensen, do you want to say anything?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then I will deny the motion for judgment of acquittal, rule consistently, and denying the motions to suppress, deny the motion for mistrial, and all of that is noted and preserved for the record. So let's talk about the plan. Ms. Jensen, how long are you going to want for closing? Tomorrow?
Just, I don't have my PowerPoint completely together yet, so I mean, obviously I don't want to sit here and talk so long that the jury falls asleep, but I would like, this has obviously been a long, complicated trial, so obviously I would like probably at least an hour.
Okay. Who's doing closing? Mr. Barry Barosset? Yes. Are you going to be operating a PowerPoint?
Absolutely.
Okay. Between you and Ms. Jensen, that should be interesting. And I will stay out of it also because I don't know how to do it either. That's good because she's not sharing her PowerPoint.
No, I'll share. Just don't ask me to operate it.
Okay. And in fact, that raises another question about your equipment. If you're going to have equipment, we need to talk about when you need to be here. But is an hour, I'm going to, as I am known to do, I'm going to hold you to the time. So Mr. Barosset?
I'm usually pretty succinct, but I mean, I don't want to be cut off 15 minutes either way, you know, I mean.
Well, no, there's going to be a time, and you tell me what the time is, and then I'm going to stop you. This is not flexible, Judge. This is Judge Shackelford. What is our time? I'm sorry?
Hour 15.
Ms. Jensen, that should be more than plenty?
Yes.
Okay. All right, this is what I'm proposing as a plan. Mr. Barosset, what time do I need to have the courtroom open for you so that your people, your assistant, or someone is going to set up, or John is going to have. You're going to actually take those back with you, but you're leaving them one more. There's some back and forth on whether it's necessary, but I don't see how it hurts to include this, is on guilty of first-degree murder with a firearm, adding with a firearm as charged in the indictment.
It'll probably be a lot less than what I asked for, hopefully.
But again, Ms. McArthur, if you've been fine, but again, just a reminder for you, I'm really more concerned about our audience. Otherwise, you're welcome to be here. So no texting, no audio recording, no using of the phones or if you have a pad, no whispering with each other. If you leave quietly, and no reactions to the arguments. I think I've covered everything. So with that, if we're ready, let's bring the jury in.
Just the only other thing, can you not dim the lights completely?
I can do whatever you want.
Okay, but I was having a hard time seeing yesterday, but.
I can do the 2 and leave that 1 that gives you some light.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's important for them to see, but I need to see today.
I understand.
Thank you.
Judge, one other thing. I'm concerned the court was blind. I don't know if you feel comfortable with her moving a little closer to you, especially when ours goes on.
I'm not concerned about the court reporter attacking me. I think she likes to be somewhat connected to her computer, but Jody, is there a way you can reposition that's better? Would you want to move your computer, and you don't want them to see your computer necessarily, but you could flip to the other side? I don't know do you want to do something?
I'll just scoot back.
You're just going to scoot back closer to me?
Yes, if that's okay.
Come on in.
I don't mind.
Water's fine. Okay. I think thank you. All right, we're ready. All right, everybody may have a seat. And for the record, the defendant is present with counsel, assistant state attorney is present. Well, good morning, everybody. It's Friday. Well, first I want to start by praising y'all one last time, or it may not be my last time, but 15 people every day this week, you have been on time or early. I haven't had to wait for anybody. I haven't had to look for anybody. Haven't had to make a phone call. Thank you. All right. All week long, I've been trying to keep y'all relaxed. We're at the end now. We're going to be getting down to business. I have to ask you my series of questions. Has anybody done any research on the case? Has anybody turned on any sort of live streaming TV show to see what they were saying about the case? I looked at the news journal this morning. I didn't see anything, but has anybody read anything in that sense? Anybody have anybody send something to you or talk about the case? Anybody have anything they need to share with me that would affect their ability to be fair and impartial? Please tell me. No. All right. Both the state and defense have now rested their case. The attorneys are going to present their final arguments. Please remember what the attorneys say is not evidence. However, it is intended to aid you in understanding the case. Both parties will have equal time, but the state is entitled to divide that time between an opening and then a rebuttal. Final thing before Ms. Jensen gets up is I told you what we'll do is I will give you offers and opportunities for a comfort break, but we're going to keep those short and so we have the same flow of consciousness and you hear everything in sort of a continuous sequence without much of a break. Ms. Jensen, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. Defense. I told you in the opening statement on Monday that you were going to hear a lot of different information from a lot of different people. And the reason that you heard so much is because it's important for you to understand how all these different lives and all these different people and all these different relationships, dysfunctional and all, how they all kind of overlapped and intertwined and intersected. For instance, without hearing from Jeff Wright, you would have no evidence of where this $100,000 came from and why. Not only that, but if you didn't hear from Jeff Wright, then you would probably think that he was suspect number one. Law enforcement did. But you heard from him, and you know that at the time Taylor went missing, he didn't even live in Florida. Same with Zach McArthur, Brandon Beatty, Kyle Britt, Audrey Warner, and Cassandra. These were all people that law enforcement looked into as possibly having some sort of involvement. You've heard from them all, and obviously they do not. It is the state's job to give you everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And you heard some very unflattering information about Taylor Wright. And you may not like some of what you heard about Taylor Wright. But in this trial, she is the victim. She's been accused of taking money. She's been accused of cheating. She's been accused of trying cocaine 3 times. But ladies and gentlemen, Taylor Wright is not on trial today. So let's not forget that she was the 33-year-old mother of a child, and she was a human being. And our laws in the great state of Florida do not classify human beings. So her life means no less than anyone else's. The state brought some of those ugly things about Taylor Wright out in my own case through Cassandra Waller. And that may have seemed a little bit odd to you, but here's why. Taylor and Cassandra had a private, personal conversation at Ashley McArthur's home, with Ashley McArthur present. And you remember Audrey was there too, and Ashley sent her out. And Taylor and Cassandra had this conversation about how Taylor had been talking to some female in Biloxi and she had tried cocaine. And then this defendant, after she murdered Taylor Wright and was being interrogated and questioned by police, used that private personal information against Taylor to lead law enforcement on these wild goose chases of where Taylor may be. Well, maybe she's in Biloxi. Maybe she's in a treatment center. Maybe she's in Destin. Not only that, but that's how Ashley McArthur came up with the idea of putting cocaine in her beer, because she heard that conversation between Cassandra and Taylor. And it's consistent with what those girls from Styx told you, the conversation they overheard the day before Taylor went missing. Ashley heard that information between Taylor and Cassandra and used it. That's why the state brought that information out, not to disparage Taylor or demean her or criticize her life. Ashley McArthur used every tool she had against Taylor to deflect and distract and take the attention away from her own guilt. Taylor was supposed to be her friend. Taylor had a key to Ashley McArthur's home. Taylor trusted this defendant with all that money. And this woman sat there hour after hour in those interviews. You saw her, calm, cool, collected. Not 1 ounce of sadness or concern or worry for her friend that was missing. She was so forthcoming about all the bad things that Taylor did. But you know what she wasn't forthcoming about? Those deposits of Taylor's money that she made and that property on Britt Road. And why? Because as she sat there giggling and laughing and joking with law enforcement on September 18th, she knew that Taylor was out there on Britt Road, because that's where she murdered her, and that's where she tried to cover up her body. She avoided all of those questions like the plague. At one point, she was asked about her cousin Kyle because they had seen his phone number in her phone records. And she says, "Oh, he's here from Gainesville." They said, "Well, is he staying out on the campus here at UWF?" And she says, "Oh no, he's staying with a friend, but I don't know where." Come on. The web of lies that she tried to spin in these interviews with law enforcement all caught up with her in the end. Because on October 19th, the last time she was interviewed, police had her phone records, police had her bank records. And did you see how her body language changed from the first interview to the last interview? She knew she was caught. And she still tried to kind of weave that web of lies, but she ended up getting caught up and tangled in it, because at the very end, she could not come up with a lie quick enough for Taylor's cell phone using a cell tower in Robertsdale, Alabama, while this defendant was in Robertsdale at a wedding. Now, I know there were a lot of documents and exhibits entered into evidence over the past week. I'm going to try to pull it together for you in a timeline. So in July of 2017, you know that Taylor withdrew $100,000 from a bank account that she wasn't supposed to when she was going through some issues with her ex-husband. 2 months later, ladies and gentlemen, 2 months later, Taylor is gone, vanished, disappeared, dead. And who was she with trying to get her money back? Ashley McArthur. This defendant was supposed to be holding Taylor's money, not spending it. This defendant said in her own statement that Taylor asked her to hold the money. Now, Ashley wanted law enforcement to believe that it was at her house. She said initially it had been there a couple days, then it went to a couple weeks. But you know that's a lie, because Taylor had a key to Ashley's house. And if all Taylor had to do was go to Ashley's house to get her money, she could have done that. That's not true. This defendant led Taylor to believe that she had a safety deposit box. It didn't exist. And Taylor was giving her this money and these cashier's check, thinking that's where Ashley was putting that money. And in the meantime, she was blowing it. Most of it on Brandon Beatty. Taylor needed that money back, and that money was gone. And the day Taylor was with this defendant to get her money back, then Taylor was gone. On August 10th, Taylor was added to the defendant's bank account. $34,000 cashier check was deposited by this defendant on August 16th. On August 17th, that $34,000 was transferred by this defendant to a number of bank accounts. You have all those bank accounts and evidence. From August 29th through September 7th, Taylor is constantly asking this defendant to take her to the bank. She's got to get to the bank. Then you heard on September 7th, they met up at Twin Peaks. And that was where the conversation was had that Ashley was going to pick Taylor up the next day and they were going to the bank. September 8th, Ashley McArthur picked up Taylor from Cassandra's house. The last text to Cassandra is on September 8th, 11:28 a.m. You have the video surveillance from Tom Thumb. The defendant and Taylor were at the Tom Thumb. You never see Taylor, but by the defendant's own admission, they're together. She buys 2 drinks, 1 beer for Taylor, 1 drink for herself. Then the defendant's cell phone is using a tower that covers the Britt Road farm, not Milton, Britt Road. That is when Taylor Wright is murdered. You heard testimony, and there's a text and evidence where this defendant made a phone call to her friend, and when she did, she was winded. And it was obviously strange enough that her friend asked her about it. So why were you so winded? This defendant's cell phone is back using towers that are close to the Britt Road farm on September 8th. The next morning, September 9th, this defendant's cell phone again using towers out at the Britt Road farm. The afternoon, she is at Home Depot buying concrete and potting soil. Again, her cell phone is using towers that cover Britt Road after Home Depot. Then Taylor's cell phone and the defendant's cell phone are using a tower in Robertsdale, Alabama. After that, Taylor's phone and the defendant's cell phones are using a tower that covers this defendant's house. I know those cell tower records the other day were messy and probably gave you all headaches. But basically what they show is the movement of Ashley's phone and the movement of Taylor's phone. September 11th, Taylor is missing 3 days. This defendant is depositing a check, not for very much, it's $352. She's depositing a check into her bank account. This was the day that Cassandra was aggravated. She said she'd had enough. She wanted Taylor's stuff moved from her driveway in that box truck. It was taken to Pensacola Automatic Amusement where the warehouse is. That same day, this defendant sent a picture of a Kimber Sis Ultra to Brandon Beatty. September 14th is when Taylor is reported missing. This defendant and this defendant and Cassandra went through Taylor's car. They found those guns, the knives, the things that were in Taylor's car. Ashley sent Cassandra pictures of Taylor's guns for documentation purposes. And then within an hour, she's sending them to Brandon Beatty. September 15th through October 2nd, Ashley McArthur is interviewed. She's interviewed again on October 19th, and while they're talking to her, a search warrant is being executed on the Britt Road property, and you know that Taylor's remains were found. So look at the evidence you have to go with the timeline. You have Taylor's bank records and evidence. I know this is really hard to see, but you have the $100,000 deposit on July 12th. Then she does, and remember, there's testimony. She's moving it all over. She's trying to hide it from her ex-husband. Then she transfers $83,000 of it to her savings account on July 18th. She withdraws $83,000 on July 18th. And who was with her? Ashley McArthur. Ashley said she was with her at the bank. She said Taylor made some commotion, was rude, whatever. Again, trying to deflect the attention to Taylor. But Ashley McArthur was with Taylor on this date. And she said that Taylor withdrew $15,000. 2 days later, Taylor goes back, deposits $68,000. So what's $83,000 minus $68,000? $15,000. Taylor Wright gave that $15,000 to Ashley McArthur. And who did Ashley McArthur give it to? Brandon Beatty, to buy that boat. Taylor also withdrew by cashier's checks, 2 cashier's checks, $34,000. You know, the one was deposited by this defendant, not Taylor's signature, and she admitted she deposited it. The other $34,000, again, on the 25th, Taylor took out $15,000 in cash. And the other $19,000 was a check, and you know that was found at Cassandra's house. Where'd that $15,000 go, ladies and gentlemen? To Ashley McArthur, to hold in the safety deposit box that didn't exist. So what does Ashley do with that $15,000? Same date, she pays for the second half of Brandon Beatty's boat. So it's not just the $34,000 cashier's check. It's the $34,000 plus $30,000 in cash for Brandon Beatty's boat. And then conveniently, while Ashley is talking to Cassandra, leading her on a wild goose chase about where Taylor is, she conveniently says, oh, when Taylor left, she had these bags and she had about $30,000 in cash. Convenient. On August 10th, Taylor Wright was added to Ashley's purely Southern account. Ashley's signature, or excuse me, Taylor's signature on the 10th. And ask yourself this question. On the 10th, when Taylor was added to this bank account, if she wanted her cashier's check deposited at that time, why wouldn't she deposit it? Because she didn't. She gave that cashier's check to Ashley to hold. She could have added it on the 10th. There's the cashier's check. There's the deposit slip. And again, Ashley admitted depositing that. Then on the 17th, the next day after that $34,000 is deposited, you have all these records and evidence. This is the purely Southern account. Here's the deposit. It is immediately transferred until there's only $600 in that account. So where does it go? This is her daughter's account. It's her and her daughter's account. And again, you have all these records and evidence. $20 there, $400 there. Next account. This is her Pensacola Automatic Amusement account. $2,000, and this is all from the purely Southern. $2,000, $9,960. $11,960 to her Pensacola Automatic Amusement account. And it's really hard to see, but on the 17th, here's the $3,274 bill that she tried to pay at Gulf Power for Brandon Beatty for sticks, returned for insufficient funds. There's also, somewhere down here, I can't see, there's a $630.51 charge to Island Cove Marina, which is where Brandon Beatty kept his boat. Also Also in those transfers was a $580.73 payment to her credit card that has a $7,000 balance. $1,390 transferred to a Pensacola automatic amusement credit card with a $13,000 balance. This is the account that she shares with her husband, Zach McArthur. $17,400 transferred from the Purely Southern account to her and Zach McArthur's bank account. Same day, she goes to a branch, withdraws $8,300 in cash. Here is the withdrawal slip. Here's the video surveillance, August 17th, 9:48 a.m. Here's the picture. Remember, Brandon Beatty testified. She sent him a picture of this cash. You got it in the phone records about 10 a.m. 2 hours later, she just picked up the bike. Hope you like it. I'm glad you like the bike. I hope it's what you wanted. And you've seen the pictures of that bike in the phone records, and Brandon Beatty confirmed that that was the bike that she purchased for him. Again, from August 29th to September 7th, Taylor is constantly asking this defendant about going to the bank, talking about a safety deposit box that didn't exist. This girl is scared she's going to go to jail and is putting pressure on Ashley McArthur to get this money. This text is on September 7th. And again, you know, the next day, or excuse me, later that same day is when they went to Twin Peaks. So they met up at Twin Peaks on the 7th, and you heard Cassandra Waller tell you that the atmosphere between Ashley and Taylor was tense. You heard Mr. John Barosset ask Cassandra. She said, well, Taylor wasn't yelling at Ashley to get her money back, or, you know, whatever that line of questioning was. But she said that Taylor said, why are you making it so difficult for me to get my money? September 8th. At around 10 a.m., you know that Ashley McArthur went to Cassandra's house to pick up Taylor. 11:28 a.m. is the last text to Cassandra. 11:53, you have the video surveillance of the defendant at the Tom Thumb buying 2 drinks. September 8th at 12:10, you have those obnoxious cell phone records that are showing that Ashley McArthur's phone is using a tower out near Britt Road. 144 is a tower showing that she is possibly leaving that area. And again, between that time, the time she's out there, 12:10 and 144 when she leaves, that is the time that Taylor is murdered. Ashley's back out at the Britt Road farm, 2:45. 3:33, the cell tower records appear to show that she's leaving the area. 3:57, Cass texts the defendant and asks about Taylor because she still has not heard from her. Ashley calls Cass from Pensacola, but says they're in Milton. And 7:38, Cass texts the defendant again about Taylor because she still had not heard from her. And again, the evidence, you know that morning, Cassandra said Taylor left. She was in a t-shirt, shorts, flip-flops, and she always wore this necklace. You have the last text that Cassandra recognized as coming from Taylor. The other two that she got didn't, or the other one that she got later on, she said it absolutely did not sound like Taylor. And if you look back, I don't have it in this in the PowerPoint, but if you look at these texts, on September 8th, Cassandra would send texts to Taylor, and Taylor would respond. After this text at 11:28 a.m., there is nothing for 8 hours. You have Ashley at the Tom Thumb, again, buying 2 drinks. Now, this is when when Ashley was confronted with the cell phone records, and she finally acknowledges that she was out there with Taylor. After all these hours and hours of conversations, she's confronted with her cell phone records, and now she says, yes, Taylor and I were out there. You have in the cell phone records, the the maps that were put into evidence. She's using its cell tower near the Britt Road farm at 12:10 p.m. You've seen the pictures of the farm. This is huge. This is a huge piece of property, 23 acres. Obviously, you've seen the mobile home on the property, the barn. The defense wanted to put in a bunch of pictures and ask witnesses questions about, well, if you're sitting on the front porch, wouldn't you be able to see that area? Well, of course you can. Of course you can. But can you see a body that is back there on the other side of the fence line? Of course not. This is a crime scene technician standing by the barn, taking a picture, and you cannot see. This is a closer up. She's on the other side of the fence line, taking a picture. Looks like a bunch of dirt and rock. Obviously, you know that that was Taylor that was found out there. Interesting part, you also have an evidence in Ms. McArthur's cell phone records, Exhibit 139. On September 8th, there is her activity, her steps and distance. And from 9:21 a.m. to 11:11 a.m., approximately 2 hours, she has 664 steps. Then between 11:46 and 11:53, when we know she's at the Tom Thumb, 83 steps. When she leaves the Tom Thumb, we now know she was at Britt Road with Taylor, and she's out there for approximately an hour and a half. And at that time, 2,141 steps. What is she doing out there? She is murdering Taylor Wright, and she is moving her body. You also have, in this time frame, Audrey, her friend, her closest friend at the time, texting her or messaging her, 1 o'clock, are you okay? This is when Ashley is out at the Britt Road farm. She doesn't respond. So Audrey, a few minutes later, says, Ashley. Ashley responds, says, yes, ma'am. Audrey says, what is going on? Ashley says, nothing. Audrey says, why were you winded when you called me? I picked up a saddle. Did she pick up a saddle, or was she moving a body? Moving a body. At 1:44 p.m. on the 8th, her cell phone records show her leaving the Britt Road farm area. And let me tell you this too. You heard the testimony of Audrey. Between 1:44, we have the phone records that show Ashley leaving that area. 2:45, she's headed back. In between that time, remember, Audrey went to work at 2 o'clock that day. And Audrey said that after she'd been at work for a little bit, this defendant came by. She was in Zach's truck, and she was by herself. She was fidgety. She didn't stay very long. And remember, according to Ashley McArthur, Taylor was with her all day from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. until she got this Uber. Audrey says she shows up, and she remembers this day because she had to count for her whereabouts. She got the Verizon receipt. She knew she was at work, so she remembers this day. This defendant came by in Zach's truck, stayed for a few minutes, was fidgety, said that she had been out at the farm doing some work and that she was headed back by herself. She's going back out there around 2:45. Around 3:33, leaving the area. 3:52, Cass sent that text to Ashley. Are you guys okay? Taylor hasn't replied to me in hours. Can you ask her to call me? This defendant then called Ashley and said, we're in Milton. Taylor's on a horse. Everything's fine. I'll have her call you when she gets off the horse. Not anywhere near Milton, ladies and gentlemen. And then at 7:38, still not having heard from Taylor, she texted Ashley McArthur again. She said, Ash, I'm sorry, this isn't okay. And then Ashley called her and then gave her that story about how after they left Milton, they went to Ashley's house, and then Taylor said she was going to have a drink, and then she went inside and she came out and Taylor was gone. The next morning, she is out back at the Britt Road farm. And actually, this says 7:22. Those are her cell phone records. The GPS records show her out there at 7:11 a.m. How many times in her conversations with law enforcement did she say, I am not a morning person. I am not a morning person. I am a late night person. She's out there at 7:11 a.m. on September 9th. And you have the text messages between her and her cousin Kyle. She texted him at 8:34 and said, are you awake? And he said, yes, ma'am, been up since 7:30. She said, okay, I'm here. He said, no, you're not, because he couldn't believe that she was out there that early. But the interesting part is she had been out there over an hour before she texted him. So what is she doing? She's making sure the body is concealed before she goes to Home Depot later that afternoon. She leaves around 9:12 a.m. At 1:07, she's buying the concrete at Home Depot. Again, from 1:07 at the Home Depot, she doesn't go back to her house to build this flower bed. She's not paving some sidewalk. She goes back to the Britt Road farm. 1:59, she's still at the farm. 2:39, she's at the pool room. 5:44, her cell phone is pinging in Robertsdale, Alabama. 5:53, Taylor's cell phone is pinging in Alabama. 7:10, the victim's son called Taylor's phone. At 8:11, the defendant's phone was using a tower near her house. And at 8:17, Taylor's phone was using a tower near the defendant's house. It's her third trip to the farm. Remember, this place that she never goes to, according to law enforcement, or that she told law enforcement. See, the GPS record showed she was actually out there at 7:11, idling for 2 hours. You've got the video surveillance of her at the Tom Thumb, buying the concrete without mixing. Without mixing. She's not out there stirring a pot. All she's got to do is throw it down. It's going to set. Rains here all the time. The lawn soil, the potting mix, it's got these little white little things in there. And then she's back out at the Britt Road farm. Again, you've got her steps and activity for the 9th. Between 10:16 a.m. and 12:31 p.m., so about 2 hours and 15 minutes on the 9th, 805 steps. From Home Depot at 1:07 to the time she's out there at Britt Road, she has 2,385 steps. What's she doing? She's covering up Taylor's body. She leaves at 1:59. This is obviously a very close-up picture, something you're not going to see from far away. There's the concrete substance and the Miracle Grow with the little white things in it. Again, look how this is so close up. These people that are out there that the defense wants to talk to you about, that are mowing yards and weed eating and cutting grass, they're not going to see that. She did a pretty good job. We know after that, she stops by the pool room. She sends Brandon a text. Why is Chelsea's truck at the pool room? She had just dropped something off to Audrey. You have the cell phone records that show this defendant's phone using a tower at 5:54 p.m. Taylor's cell phone gets a call at 5:53, 9 minutes later, using the exact same tower. Taylor's son, Drake, called at 7:10 p.m. The phone is headed back into Pensacola. Who else is headed back into Pensacola? Remember, her husband said she left the wedding early because she got a phone call, something about a jukebox. She's coming back into Pensacola. So is Taylor's phone. This is Drake calling his mom. It says 8:10, but remember, they were Eastern, so it's 7:10. The husband said, Mr. Wright said, Taylor did not answer. Then he gets a text. Can I call you back? From Taylor. And remember, he said they never texted. This child is young, little. Usually they spoke on the phone. The only text they would typically send back and forth were photographs. She says, or her phone says, can I call you back? He says, yes. Then he tries to call her again, doesn't get an answer. Her phone texts back, I will call you back. He says, me too. Drake tries to call his mom again at 9:17, no answer. Tries again at 9:20. And he says, will you call me back? Never heard from his mother. August 11th, excuse me, you have Ashley's residence at 3961 Rangetree Drive. Her phone is using a cell tower that covers her home. Taylor gets phone calls from her son again. Those are her son's phone calls. And is also using that same tower, excuse me, that covers her home. September 11th. This is when Ashley deposited a check. It's 9/11. September 11th, 10:12 a.m. You've got the bank records and evidence, $352.50. Taylor is missing, and she is still depositing Taylor's money. What else happens on September 11th? That's when Taylor's stuff is moved from Cassandra's home to the warehouse. Ashley sends Brandon Beatty a text. I bought a gun for you today. Sends him a picture. Kimber Sis Ultra. It's 9/11. Same day Taylor's stuff moved to the warehouse. You've heard that there was a firearm trace put on it, and that came back to Taylor Wright. September 14th, day she's reported missing. These are the texts that Ashley sent to Cassandra of Taylor's guns. An hour later, this defendant is texting Brandon Beatty. I did pick up 2 more guns for you today. And then sends him pictures. This is on the 14th, the day that Taylor is reported missing. She is giving Taylor's guns to her boyfriend, Brandon Beatty. Then she's interviewed the 15th, the 18th, the 18th again at PPD. The 24th is a phone call. September 28th is a phone call. October 2nd is a phone call. And then she's interviewed again on October 19th. First one was not recorded. Remember, this is just the very initial stages of the investigation. Detective Gigliotti said that Ashley said, yes, we're friends. I was with her on the 8th, picked her up. We rode around, went to some place in Beulah where Taylor was looking at a car or something to that effect. Then we went to a location off of Scenic Highway, which you know is not true. Then we went to the farm in Milton, which you know is not true. We went back to my house. Taylor said she was getting an Uber and she was going to have a drink, which you know is not true. The 18th, Detective Gigliotti went to Miss McArthur's home. She confirmed that they were at this farm in Milton. When asked about other properties, she said her aunt had a property at the north end of the county. When asked for the address, she said she'd get it, which obviously she never did. She said she thought Taylor was just acting like a nut. You saw the September 18th interview. She said she admitted that Taylor had asked to get her money before the 8th, but she was too busy. And then she acknowledged that she bought Taylor a beer at the Tom Thumb in Beulah. Said that it was just her and Taylor at this farm in Milton. And then again, when she was asked about this property at the north end of the county, she said she would get it and that Taylor had never been there. You've got the recorded phone call from September 24th, asking for any updates, kind of pushing this Destin area. The 28th, another recorded phone call asking for updates, basically acting like she has no idea what's going on with Taylor. October 2nd, asking for updates. Maybe we should check a treatment facility. And then, of course, you know, on the 19th, that's when she was confronted with all the bank records and phone records. Oh, she says that when she finally admits that Taylor and her were out at that property, she said Taylor had some kind of a lockbox out there. Well, where is this lockbox? It wasn't out there on the Britt Road property. Don't think she took it in an Uber with her. There is no lockbox because it didn't exist. And then, of course, when they say, why would you not tell us this? She said, well, Taylor asked me not to tell anyone ever. Of course, she was confronted with Taylor's phone being in Robertsdale. And again, she got all tongue-tied. You saw it. Oh, she wasn't with me, or I was unaware if I had her phone. It could have been under that stuff she had in the vehicle. Well, the problem with that, ladies and gentlemen, is Taylor was in the truck with Ashley on the 8th. When her and her husband went to this wedding on September 9th, they were in the white Jeep. So Taylor's cell phone's not going to go from this truck to the Jeep without her having it. Those are the facts and the evidence in this case. I just want to briefly touch on the law. We talked about it in jury selection. The judge is going to give you the instructions. The only three things that the state has to prove in this case are: number
Faster,
one,
less
Taylor Wright is dead. That's been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Number two, the death was caused by the criminal act of Ashley McArthur. That has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And that there was a premeditated killing of Taylor Wright. As we talked about in jury selection on the Monday, the law in Florida does not fix the exact period of time that must pass. September 7th, 2017. The world would be a better place without Taylor. How much cocaine would it take to kill someone? September 7th, later that same night, who's she texting? T, the drug dealer at Babe's. And she deleted them. You going to be out tonight? This is from her to T. Okay, I'm about to head to Babe's in a bit. From T. I'll text you when I get there. From Ashley to T. And then by 11:06 p.m. Thanks, love. What did she buy the next morning? A beer. What did she tell Audrey she was going to do? She was going to put that cocaine in a beer for Taylor to drink. When Audrey asked Ashley, what did you end up doing with the cocaine? She said, I put it in the beer and Taylor spit it out because it tasted sour. And then about 24 hours later, she's in the Home Depot buying the concrete and the potting soil.
faster, less
Taylor Wright
expensive,
shot in the
higher
back of the
quality.
head. Why is that significant? Because Ashley McArthur was constantly talking about how tough Taylor was, and she always had firearms. She's a prior law enforcement officer. She knows how to protect herself. I don't know if you caught it, but in the audio or in the interview on September 18th, she said, Taylor is not an easy target. Taylor shot in the back of the head, got the projectile in her skull that was removed. You've got the photos of a Smith & Wesson that this defendant gave to Brandon Beatty shortly before she was arrested. Now, I know the defense kept saying, well, she never told you to get rid of this. She never told you to do anything with it. She didn't, because she's not that dumb. But what did she say to Brandon Beatty? She gives him this gun, and she says, I don't care what you do with it. She knows he buys, trades, sells guns. Got the serial number on it. And you heard from investigator Wright that he put a trace on this. That revolver comes back to her father, John Britt. Ladies and gentlemen, Ashley McArthur had the motive. Ashley
To survive
McArthur
and-
had the opportunity. Ashley McArthur murdered Taylor Wright, and then she tried to cover it up with lies, concrete, and potting soil.
Thank you. All right, everybody's getting settled in. For the record, State of Florida versus Ashley McArthur, 17 CF 5844. Defendant is present with counsel. Assistant State Attorney is present. And I believe the jury's ready. So let's go get them. Okay, y'all may have a seat. Defendant is present with counsel. Assistant State Attorney is present. Ma'am, just go ahead and move. Ma'am in the corner, just go ahead and move and have a seat. I have to have my court security sit back there. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Barry Barasset.
Please, the court. Ms. Jensen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be the only opportunity I'm going to have to talk to you. In behalf of my son, John, myself, and my client, I want to thank you for listening attentively to the evidence throughout the course of this trial. I know it's difficult for you to be away from your work and your families, and as the judges commented, we've all recognized that you've been paying very close attention. So I'm not probably going to take an hour and 15 minutes to go over things that you've already seen, but I want to address several important parts. You've heard all the evidence. There is no other evidence that you're going to have in this case. It's all in court now, whether there's a conflict, lack of evidence, or the evidence itself. Ms. McArthur is charged with first-degree premeditated murder. That means that you must believe that she has committed a murder. They have to prove three things, as the state has said, that that Taylor Wright is dead, and that Ashley McArthur caused the death by a criminal act, by shooting, and that it was premeditated. She is not charged with stealing any money. She's not charged with lying. She's not charged with being unfaithful. The judge is going to tell you at the end of this, she's not on trial for anything other than first-degree murder. One of the things that we talked about in voir dire examination is your obligation as a juror. And at the close of this case, the judge is going to give you all the instructions. But there are important safeguards that we have in our country to protect people who are charged by an offense in this country. And I'm going to discuss those with you. I think they're very important to go over. First of all, one of the things that you're going to talk about is the plea of not guilty, reasonable doubt, and burden of proof. And this is going to be over a period of time because it's a long instruction. But that'd be fine, thank you. But remember, folks, as it says, the defendant, Ms. McArthur, has entered a plea of not guilty. This means that you must presume or believe she's innocent. And if you remember, when we were talking in voir dire examination. That was a question that I went around to over 70 jurors in there, and each of the jurors acknowledged, the ones that are sitting here, that they could abide by that. There were some that said, no, I can't, and we thank them for their honesty, but they acknowledged that. That's what our system is. It's not like any other system anywhere in the world. You're presumed innocent. In fact, many times I've had cases in federal court where the judge will say, Mr. Verosset and his client can sit there and play cards. They don't have to do anything. Just be present. Of course, we wouldn't play cards, but that's the means that the presumption of innocence follows her throughout the trial of this cause. The next thing I want to talk about, and we're still on this, is who has the burden of proof? Who has the burden of proof in this case? The state of Florida has the burden of proving the crime which the defendant is charged, first-degree premeditated murder, not theft, not the other things that we've heard so much evidence about, and that the defendant is the person that actually committed the crime. And we're going to talk about that because I don't think they have proved anything with respect to that. And again, it says, Ms. McArthur is not required to prove anything. This is all part of the reasonable doubt. What is a reasonable doubt? You know, we talk about it and the judge is going to instruct you on it. And the part that I've underlined obviously is one that I want you to look at, but you're going to have to consider all the instructions during the course of the trial and the thing in the totality. But it says, if after carefully considering, I got an extra V in there, comparing and weighing all the evidence, there is not a binding conviction of guilt, or if having a conviction, it is one which is not stable, but one which wavers and vacillates, then the charge is not proved beyond a reasonable doubt, and the court will tell you you must find her not guilty. It's their burden to prove the case. And what I like to say on something like this is, if you're in there and you say, well, she probably did it. Well, I don't know if she did it or not. I think maybe she did more than that. If you have that type of feeling and there's not a firm belief that Ms. McArthur, based upon the evidence, committed murder with a firearm, then you're obligated to find her not guilty. One of the things that you can look at is if one in their most important affairs would act without hesitation. That's the type of burden we're talking about here. Act upon without hesitation. What about reasonable doubt? Reasonable doubt can arise from the evidence, the lack of evidence, or the conflict in evidence. And it says there at the bottom, if you have a reasonable doubt, you should find Ms. McArthur not guilty. You know, we're not here to solve the crime, but here to determine strictly, and the judge will tell you that, whether or not they proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a high standard, and I'll talk about that later. Obviously, the case must not be decided against anyone. Ms. Jensen said, this is a 33-year-old mother of a child. Obviously, this is a sad situation when anyone dies. You know, some people may feel angry if they suspect that Ms. McArthur was involved in that, but you have to put those feelings of emotion aside. You have to decide the case on the facts, the evidence, the conflict in the evidence, or the lack of evidence. That's the way the rules apply in this case. That's why we have such a wonderful country and a judicial system in the United States. People are presumed innocent, and it's the state's burden to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. This is another thing that we talked about in voir dire examinations. Each of you sitting here before me, each one of you are a judge of this case. No one makes that decision other than you. Judge Shackelford runs the court, tells us how the court should operate, but you decide what the evidence is, what the verdict is. And as we talked in voir dire examination, I ask each of you, would you be willing to do that? Would you be willing to listen to the evidence, listen to the judge's instructions, go back into the jury room after you've had all the evidence, you may have something to think, talk among yourself, and then form an opinion based upon that evidence, lack of evidence, whether or not they proved the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I asked you as well, I went around and asked, if you had a reasonable doubt, if something came up and you felt the case hadn't been proved, are you going to change your mind just because other people disagree with you? Nobody, I think, will do that. They'll make the decision on their own. That's what I'm asking you to do, because that's the law. That's the law. Again, this is why I go over these things, and they're very important, and the judge will instruct you. The fact that Ms. McArthur did not testify cannot be considered by you in any way. That's so, and I think you understand that, because it's the state's burden. When one elects not to testify, it's the state's burden to prove the case, and you cannot consider that. You can't say, well, an innocent person would testify. That's not necessarily true. And so you have to put that aside. And I think each of you will do that. That's your sworn duty to do that. Your job is to determine if they prove that she killed her. As I said earlier, it's not to say, well, I wonder who did it. If she didn't do it, somebody else did it. You're not here to determine that. It's a standard that we in the United States stand by. The state talks about opportunity and motive. I don't think you're going to hear an instruction that says, well, if someone has the opportunity and motive, they must have committed murder. She's jumping the fence and putting on a lot of information about theft, but we're going to talk about that and about the motive and the opportunity. The fact that someone is in that position doesn't mean that they individually caused the death of Miss Wright. I'm going to talk to you now about some reasonable doubts. September the 8th, September the 9th. Miss Jensen said she was killed at around noon. That's what she said on September the 8th. She said that. Nobody else said that. The medical examiner, Dr. Minyard, came in and testified that she could not tell you when death occurred. She said that she's seen skeletization happen within 10 days. So nobody scientifically knows when the death occurred. If the state says that's when it occurred, that's based upon what they believe the circumstances prove, but they must prove all circumstances beyond a reasonable doubt. They cannot just have conjecture here. We know, and the state mentioned this, that the last time there was any communication from Taylor Wright's phone was on September the 9th at 9:11 p.m. Central Time, and they received it in Eastern Time at 8:11 Eastern Time on September the 9th. Do you remember who was using that phone then? Or how would Miss McArthur access that phone? Because do you remember Cassandra Waller's testimony when she was talking about, we had this meeting and she just didn't basically trust Taylor Wright, and she suggested that her thumb be put on there so that she could have access to it. So the evidence indicates, there's nothing else to indicate, that two people had access to that phone. Taylor Wright, Cassandra Waller. And the state's saying, well, the murder call occurred on noon. It's September the 8th, but there's a text message from a phone that was accessed only by Cassandra Waller and Taylor Wright. There's no evidence of otherwise. Forensic evidence. There's no forensic evidence where the murder occurred. There's nothing. Miss Jensen talks about it happened right here. Well, she's got the murder occurring at noon on September the 8th in between that time. And yet she's claiming the body is buried sometime the next day after, 3 o'clock or whatever, on September the 9th. Where was the body during this period of time? I mean, this is a human being, a body laying somewhere. There must be some evidence where it was. Was it in the truck? There's no forensic evidence. That's her statement. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And we did talk about Taylor Wright. She did have a sort of a volatile situation. Taylor Wright, one of the witnesses testified she'd do anything in this divorce to get the upper hand. she apparently took $100,000. She was a cocaine user. She wasn't trusted enough by Cassandra Waller unless she could have her thumbprint in the phone and see where Taylor Wright was going. Well, that was her testimony. And the fact of the matter is she had had an affair with somebody in Biloxi. They had a meeting at Miss McArthur's house sometime to discuss these problems. And they went over to talk to her about it. And apparently Cassandra Waller and Taylor Wright had a meeting there. And that's when I guess they decided they're going to put her thumbprint on the phone so that she could trace her. But any event, there's a lot of things that we don't know about Taylor Wright. One of the things that the state has talked about, this motive for money. Do you remember Brandon Beatty says, from the time I met Miss McArthur, that she was helping me, giving me money, so on. It didn't start after July of 2017. This theory about the motive was because July of 2017, she needed money to buy Brandon Beatty things. If you look at the text messages, one of these messages in here, it's in Government Exhibit 134, and I put a flag on it. It's going to be on page, at least at the bottom, it says page 4925, and it says, this is from Taylor Wright. I need to get the keys to the safety deposit box. I've got this ring in there and I can't be running around with $50,000 in my bag. That is on August the 29th, 2017. August the 29th, 2017. The money was deposited in the account mid-August 15. This is right near the time when they last heard Taylor Wright. So she hadn't been using Taylor Wright's money to help Brandon Beatty with his business or buying guns or giving guns. She had been doing that long because she had a cash business. And you see in there's Exhibit 14. The state's already shown it to you. That in Exhibit the 14, there's a receipt there for July the 25th, 2017 for the purchase of the boat. And I don't think that receipt said $30,000. I think it said a down payment or something to that effect. But in any event, you'll have that in there to look at. But anyway, we know that at least on August the 29th, Taylor Wright had most of the money. $50,000 in a bag, she said. We know they deposited $34,000 in a cashier's check that she had, and we know that there was a $19,000 cashier's check found later. Add that up, comes to $103,000, which is what she took from her husband. I think I put all that up there. I just tend to go on without these things. In any event, let's talk about this big conspiracy to poison Taylor Wright. If you remember, we're talking about September the 7th. This is an important date, September the 7th, 2017. Alexis Cook, Audrey Potts, Jessica Wheeler had testified. Remember, there was some testimony on the night of September 7th, an allegation that apparently the next day she was texted or received a telephone call on September the 8th that she had put some cocaine in Taylor Wright's beer, but it tasted bad in the morning. Now, let's look at the timeline. Alexis Cook, who testified, admitted she's a convicted felon, and the judge will tell you can consider that. She also acknowledged on cross-examination that she did investigation on Facebook, looked on social media to find out about the case, and that she did this before she went in and talked to the police. Alexis Cook said, she saw cocaine in the hands of them. I guess she's referring to Taylor Wright and Audrey Potts, excuse me, Miss McArthur and Audrey Potts. And she said she saw cocaine on the table. Audrey Potts, who purportedly went with Miss McArthur to visit T, said she saw some money, but she never saw any cocaine. When they got back, she never saw any cocaine. Jessica Wheeler was there, and she said she never saw any cocaine. And they both said that, she, as I understand, she was not a part of the conversation about this putting cocaine in her beer, referring to Alexis Cook. Now, that couldn't have happened for two reasons, and I'm going to explain why. Cassandra Waller said on September the 7th, the day before, that she and Taylor Wright were at Twin Peaks. They didn't expect Miss McArthur to come, but Miss McArthur joined them. Cassandra Waller said that Taylor Wright and Cassandra went home to Cassandra Waller's house and spent the night, and they never saw Miss McArthur until 10 o'clock the next day. Okay? That's one reason it couldn't have happened. Because Taylor Wright was not with them on September the 7th. She was home. And now the state's come up with some theory about, well, possibly put beer in the next day. We'll talk about that. On September the 7th at Styx, Audrey Potts and Jessica Wheeler were drinking. Miss McArthur was drinking. They acknowledged that they had shots, if you recall. And some said, well, were you drunk? Well, not at the time, but we had more shots and later we were. Well, we know from Audrey Potts and from a picture that was put in by the state that Ashley McArthur was at Styx Lounge on the evening of September 8th until the morning, evening of September 7th, until the morning of September 8th at 2 a.m. because Audrey Potts said, I took a picture of her and put a thing over. She was passed out on the floor. So there was no putting any cocaine in anybody's drink. And Audrey Potts said, well, she called the next day and told me that. Well, I don't know what they talked about, but we do know, even by the evidence that they put in, that there was no beer bought before about noon or 11 o'clock. So nothing happened in the morning because she said she called her in the morning. You know what it was? It's a bunch of drunken talk. That's all it is. It doesn't show any intent to harm or kill anyone. Okay. There's no DNA. There's no DNA linking Miss McArthur to Taylor Wright's death. There's no trace or scientific evidence linking her. There was a search on September the 18th, knock and announce at the Raintree address. The police didn't tell her they were coming. They said, we might come and visit you, but the officer acknowledged they didn't know when she was coming. Detective Gigliotti had full access to Miss McArthur's house at Raintree on September the 18th, approximately 10 days after anyone heard from Taylor Wright. They walked around. He said he looked in the bedrooms, he looked in the basement, he looked in the closets, he looked in the bathroom. He was looking for evidence. He's a detective. He saw nothing, found nothing. We know that they then searched the house on October the 19th with a search warrant. We then know they searched the house on October the 24th with another search warrant. They collected hundreds of items for forensic evidence, shorts in the basement, anything that could have any DNA or connection to that. Guns, there was everything there. There were a lot of guns in that house. You saw some of the pictures. They found nothing to connect Miss McArthur to the death. We're talking about physical evidence when we're talking about prosecuting somebody for first-degree murder. Evidence that shows that she pulled the trigger and killed Taylor Wright. And let's talk about the gun. We know that Brandon Beatty got a lot of guns from her. No question about it. She gave her Taylor Wright's guns. Miss McArthur gave her guns, I think it was AR-15s, shotguns, Kimbers, Glocks. All this was something she had been doing for a long time. The state, and I think she showed you this, which is Defense Exhibit number 11. This is the bullet. This is the bullet that they recovered from Taylor Wright's skull. The state let it hang at that. You know, this is a similar firearm, this picture of this 38. But I was able to get, through the state by request, a copy of all the firearms that could fire that. Now, this is the model numbers. This is the brands: Ruger, Smith & Wesson, Taurus, pages and pages. INAs, Ruger, H&R, US, any one of these guns manufactured by these manufacturers could have fired a 38 class bullet, which includes a 38, a 357 Magnum, a 380, and I think it's a 9mm Ruger, any of them. And this is just a list of the guns manufacturers. For every one of these guns, there are thousands of guns that are produced. So they take a picture of a 38. They could have taken a picture of everything and try and tell you that this gun was used in this. Well, Miss Ritchie, who is a firearms expert, said when looking for a comparison, she could not, the bullet was not suitable for comparison. If it's not suitable for comparison, what the state is doing is they're putting in a bullet and says, does it have a couple grooves like it? Trying to get you to be convinced that that's proof of something beyond a reasonable doubt. These circumstances have to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. It would be just like this. Say we have a fingerprint expert and he gets a fingerprint and he says, this fingerprint isn't suitable for comparison, but there was one ridge detail on there and that could have come from Barry Barassa's hands. That's not comparison. She said it couldn't be compared. It's no evidence in this case. The gun is no evidence in this case, and it doesn't link Miss McArthur to the murder of Taylor Wright. There is no gun that's been introduced that does that. The truck. What about the truck? They searched the truck, the 250 Ford, they bought a black Jeep, a white Jeep, but on the 250 Ford, they believe that was the vehicle that was used the day of the murder. And they believe that they could get forensic evidence off of that. So they took evidence from all parts of it, the door, the handles, the back seat, and they did recover a mixed DNA of an unidentified male in the back seat. But they found nothing to link Miss McArthur to the death of Taylor Wright. Motive. Motive isn't proof. We all have ideas or motives at times. That doesn't mean we act upon them. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she acted upon them and murdered somebody. Here's the kicker, and I'm going to talk about this first. I think I got it on here. The concrete. Right here. The concrete. You have photographs. She put one of them up on the screen, a big one, and you saw the concrete. The concrete had pebbles or rocks like in it, little round stones, which concrete has that you're using on a sidewalk or paving or something like that. If any of you work with concrete, that concrete was rough concrete. And Miss Jensen, after Devontae Sims had testified about Miss McArthur coming in and purchased concrete, she said, oh, he purchased a 50-pound bag, a 40-pound bag. She purchased 2 bags of soil. She got back up on redirect and says, what was the texture of that? And he said, I'm going to quote him, fine like dust. Let me tell you something. If the concrete that she purchased isn't the concrete there, They don't have a concrete case. They don't have strong evidence because the person who covered it up used some other concrete. It is not the concrete that she purchased. You know, the other thing, let's face it, you know, this case is 2 years old almost. They've had a lot of evidence over the time. They knew the exact brand of that concrete, both of them. You saw the brand, you saw the price tags. They knew the exact brands of the potting soil. Why didn't they test it? They didn't test it. It's a big question. The concrete is different on that body, those remains, than the concrete she purchased, because she purchased fine concrete like dust. You know, on her back problems, I talked about that. I didn't say Miss McArthur couldn't kayak or couldn't hunt or anything like that. All we put in there is evidence to show that in 2010, Miss McArthur had an accident. It was a serious accident, as Dr. Roberts testified. He testified about the injury and it wouldn't heal itself. She's never had any surgery since. So we know that she had a back injury. And her mother testified that she's always had trouble lifting heavy things. Her employees said they always got help if it was something heavy. So let's just look at this. If she was running around, pulling this body, lifting this body, putting 90 pounds of concrete on September the 9th, and moving the body on September the 8th, wouldn't you think you'd see something to indicate that? You got a video at Tom Thumb's on September the 8th, when they went, it's about noon, when they went there and she purchased a beer. And remember, I told you earlier, there was no beer in the morning anywhere. That's just what they're saying. But in any event, you can see her. She walks in there. You see anything that indicates like she's been stressed out or anything? She's got on nice clothes. She's clean. Nothing to indicate that she's been or planning to kill somebody. We don't even know if Taylor Wright was in the car at that time. We do not know that. On September the 9th, that was on September the 8th. On September the 9th, you got a video of her going to Home Depot and talking to Devontae Sims. What did Devontae Sims said? He helped her load the 2 bags of concrete in the soil in the front of the vehicle. He said, we talked about her Jeep. He liked her black Jeep. This wasn't a person that just killed somebody. There's no evidence of any dishevelment. There's no evidence that she's stressed. There's no evidence that she's under adrenaline effect, as the state has suggested, that she could pick up people. I don't know if any of you ever deer hunted, but you kill a 130-pound deer, and it's hard to move a body. It's hard to move. And also, on September the 8th, she met her husband, Zach McArthur. Miss McArthur met her husband at the Blackwater Bistro. He said she was normal, just like her normal self. On September the 9th, she went to a wedding with Zach McArthur. Then he came back separately, or she came back separately. She was normal. You've seen enough on television. You see what happens when somebody's traumatized, if they've done something, if they killed somebody, or if they've seen somebody kill somebody. You just don't turn that on and off. There's nothing to indicate anything in her demeanor through these videos that they've got, that they put in, or her clothing or her dishevelment, that indicates that she was killing somebody or dragging somebody's body around. There's nothing there. And that's strong evidence, physical evidence that you can see, not something that state is suggesting. You know, we talked about all the searches. We talked about the lack of any evidence as far as any physical evidence of the murder, because this is what we're here about. We're here about a murder case, the most serious crime you can be charged with. We're not here on any other offense. But look at this. Maybe she did it. It's possible she did it. You suspect she did it? Probable cause is what it takes to arrest somebody? That's what it takes? If you're in a civil case and there's no presumption of innocence, the burden of proof is by clear and convincing evidence. If you're in a violation of probation or something like that, it's proof by preponderance of the evidence, a greater burden. If they want to take your child away from you, they have to prove it by clear and convincing evidence. Clear and convincing evidence. Beyond and to the certain of every reasonable doubt is the highest burden that can be afforded someone. And that's what the state has to prove, and prove that Miss McArthur killed with premeditated design Taylor Wright. Not that she was out at the farm, not that she lied about it, not that she had some money of hers. They've got to prove that the crime occurred. And they don't have any physical evidence. They have none. You know, when you get back there, I know you're going to have to look at all the evidence, take your time. And as the judge says, you know, you'll tell you you've got all the time you need to deliberate, whatever it takes, no deadline. But when you do that, eventually you're going to come to a decision. You're going to get a verdict form. And the verdict form is going to have several things. First degree premeditated murder, second degree murder, then they'll have some blanks, whether with a firearm or whether a firearm was charged, manslaughter, and then whether a firearm was charged. And then at the very end, they have not guilty. When you consider the evidence and the burden that the state has, I ask you to do your duty in this case, because there is a reasonable doubt, and I ask you to return a verdict of not guilty of Miss McArthur. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Jensen has up to about 30 minutes if she wants to respond. Does anybody need a comfort break? Everybody good? Ms. Jensen, you may proceed.
Don't worry, I don't get to start all over again. Just want to talk briefly about Miss McArthur's back, because you heard the testimony of the chiropractor. He has not seen her in 9 years, or however long it was. And the fact that her mother takes a stand and says that she can't lift heavy things, and the fact that her husband takes a stand and says he has to carry the laundry basket because it hurts her back. Well, you also heard in her interview that she helped Taylor Wright move a bunch of boxes. So many boxes that they filled up this box truck. You also heard testimony from her cousin Kyle that she helped him move pool tables. So, and you also saw the interviews. She had no problem sitting in there for hours when her chiropractor from however many years ago said that she reported she had trouble sitting. Not saying she did not have an injury. Certainly she did. But did it affect her ability to move Taylor Wright, who is the same size as her? Of course not. Mr. Brasa said there's no eyewitness. Well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, people don't typically kill people in front of others. I mean, does it happen? Sure. Did it happen here? No. Ashley McArthur took Taylor Wright way out in the middle of Cantonment on 23 acres of property. Of course, there's no eyewitness. The only eyewitness is probably a horse that was out there. Again, she's not dumb. She went out there when she knew Kyle was not home, either because they spoke, because they were rekindling their relationship at that time. She knew he wasn't there. Either he told her, or she checked his location on Facebook. Mr. Brossett says there's no DNA, there's no fingerprints. Of course there's not. The state put the DNA analyst on the stand. The state doesn't have anything to hide. It is what it is. But you also have to remember, these search warrants, these swabs, all these things are 6 weeks after Taylor was murdered. And not only that, she's a former crime scene technician. You think she doesn't know what they look for? There were cadaver dogs out there on that property that did not find that body. This fish and wildlife officer just happened to be walking around and saw a little disturbance. Thank gosh. This code to Taylor's phone. Taylor Wright trusted Ashley McArthur. Taylor Wright had a key to Ashley's house. Taylor Wright was giving this defendant hundreds of thousands of dollars to hold because Taylor trusted her. Do you think for 2 seconds that Ashley McArthur is going to give Taylor a key to her house and not going to know Taylor's phone code? And even if she didn't, how hard is it to figure out when you're with someone what their code is? Look over their shoulder. Ashley McArthur had Taylor's phone. That's the only way that it's in Robertsdale, Alabama, at the same time she is at a wedding. No forensic evidence, Mr. Brossett says, of where and when Taylor was killed. Well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, the state cannot pinpoint the exact square foot where Ashley put the bullet in the back of Taylor's head. It's 23 acres. 23 acres of property in the middle of nowhere, where I'm sure if a firearm gets shot, no one thinks twice. She didn't take her out there to go pick up a lockbox. She took her out there to kill her. In the middle of nowhere. Can I tell you exactly on that piece of property where it happened? No. But you know it did. And then Ashley wrapped Taylor up in the hammock that was inside the barn. You saw the hammock straps. She wrapped Taylor up in that lightweight parachute style material hammock. And she dragged her, hauled her, drove her, pulled her, whatever. And what happens when someone is dragged? And they're wearing flip-flops. Shoes come off. Taylor had no shoes when her body was found. And Cassandra told you when she left the house that morning, she was wearing flip-flops. Same clothes, shorts and a t-shirt. Same thing she was wearing when she left on September 8th. Found 6 weeks later in it's not even a grave. She didn't dig a hole. She just put her body there and covered it. Flip-flops missing. She took Taylor's body to the other side of the property because, again, she's a smart girl. She's got a criminal justice degree. She's not going to bury her right on the property. Her aunt's trying to hold weddings out there. So she puts her just across the property line on someone else's property in a wooded area. It's covered up. How did she get Taylor over there? There are wheelbarrows, riding lawnmowers, ATVs, four-wheelers. She didn't toss Taylor over her shoulder and carry her. Taylor's not a big girl. You've got her ID and evidence. You saw the picture of Ashley and Taylor standing by each other at the Alabama game. Almost the same size. She covered her up enough on the 8th, back in that wooded area. And then she went back later that afternoon to check her work. And then she was out there at 7 o'clock the next morning for 2 hours. What is she doing? She's making sure that nobody finds that body until she can get it covered. Then she went to Home Depot and then back out to the farm. She's got the key to the property. She's got the key to the ATV. She is the key to this murder. Mr. Barassa said, cocaine, this is just a bunch of drunk talk. Well, it would be, except the fact that Ashley then left with Audrey and went to Babes and bought $250 worth of cocaine. That's not just talk, ladies and gentlemen. And let's get something real clear. Taylor Wright did not die by cocaine, okay? That's not the point of that. The point is this. The cocaine shows this defendant's premeditated intent to kill. She is thinking about this, talking about this the night before. She knows the next day she's picking Taylor up and they're supposed to be going to the bank. Mr. Barassa said, all these search warrants were executed at the defendant's house. Sure they were. She says, hey, come on in on the 18th. She doesn't have anything to hide because nothing happened there. Of course, come in. That's not where Taylor was murdered. That's not where anything is. And right after she killed Taylor on the 8th, what did she do? She scooped up all the property, took it back to Cassandra. Dr. Maynard said she has seen a body skeletonized in 10 days in water. Dr. Maynard also said that the condition of Taylor Wright's body is consistent with her last known alive date of September 8th. It's not what the state believes, it's what the evidence shows. This honorable judge will not instruct you that the state has to present fingerprints or DNA or any specific type of evidence, so long as you as the jury are convinced beyond a reasonable doubt, based on the state's case, that this defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. She will not tell you the state has to present 2 exhibits or 20 exhibits, so long as you as the jury are convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. She does not say that it has to be direct. She does not say that it has to be circumstantial. Just as long as the evidence is sufficient to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant is guilty. Mr. John Barasa said in his opening, evidence can come to you in many different forms, and the state could not agree more. Circumstantial evidence is evidence, and it is overwhelming in this case. Digital evidence is direct evidence. The cell tower records, the cell phone records, video surveillance is direct evidence. Home Depot, Tom Thumb. All of these different pieces of evidence, ladies and gentlemen, did not just fall out of the sky and land on Ashley McArthur. Mr. Barasa said, well, we don't know if Taylor was even in the car at the Tom Thumb. Well, his client said she was. Devontae Sims, sure, nice guy working at Home Depot, sees a pretty lady in the aisle, says, hey, do you need some help? She didn't ask him for help. And not only that, so he loads it in the car. Well, who's got to unload it? She does. And don't forget, again, there are wheelbarrows out there. It's a farm. Mr. Barasa said, well, she went to dinner with her husband later on the 8th, and she was normal. She was normal at the Home Depot, just like she was normal in those interviews with law enforcement as she was lying to them. Calm, cool, collected. Ladies and gentlemen, you have everything you need. You have the facts, you have the evidence, you have your common sense. Now apply the law, deliver justice, and find this defendant guilty as charged.
All right, thank you.
Circuit Court is reconvened. You may be seated, maintain order.
All right, we're back on the record. State of Florida versus Ashley McArthur, 17 CF 5844. Defendant is present with counsel. Assistant State Attorney is present. My understanding is we have a verdict. Anything from the state? Anything, Mr. Barry Barasa? John Barasa?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Let me talk to everybody in the audience. Somebody out there is going to be unhappy. I don't know what the verdict is. But if there are people here, I know there are some family members and friends for Ms. McArthur, and presume that there are family members and friends for Taylor Wright. And I don't know, as I said, we're going to know in 5 minutes or less what the verdict is. But let's talk about your reactions. You may not be happy, but it's not a complete surprise, whatever the verdict is. If there is anyone who is going to audibly react, then you need to go ahead and quietly step out now. You need to assume that it's the verdict you do not want. And if you think you would react, you need to step out now. I do not want this jury, who has been, as far as I can tell, a tremendous jury as far as attention, their willingness to serve and being on time, to feel any pressure from reactions from people in the crowd. Not to mention, I have the power of contempt over you. And that's not my goal today, is to hold people in contempt. But I do not want you reacting. Once you hear the verdict, if you decide you might be getting emotional, then you can quietly get up and quietly leave. Don't slam any doors. Don't outburst right outside the door. Does everybody understand the rules? This is very important. Okay. Having said that, let's bring the jury in. Do you have a pen, Renee? All right, and everybody may have a seat, and for the record, defendant is present with counsel. Assistant State Attorney is present. Are you Mr.? No. Who's my foreperson?
Who's got the, Mr. Okay, thank you, sir. Mr., were y'all able to reach a verdict? Okay, all I want you to do is to hand it to court security, okay? Thank you. I'm going to hand it to the clerk to publish.
In the Circuit Court in and for Escambia County, Florida, State of Florida versus Ashley Britt McArthur, case number 1717CF005844A. Verdict as to the charge in count one, we the jury find the defendant Ashley McArthur guilty of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm as charged in the indictment. So say we all. David A. Fowles, foreperson, dated August 30th, 2019.
Mr. Barry Barasa, do you want the clerk to poll the jury? All right, Renee's going to ask y'all each a question, okay?
Is this your individual verdict as well as the verdict of the jury as a whole?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this your verdict?
Yes, it is.
Is this your verdict?
Yes, it is.
Is this your verdict? Is
Yes,
this your
it is.
verdict? Is this your verdict?
Yes, it is.
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 Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Is this your verdict?
Yes, it is.
Is this your verdict?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I always thank my juries, but I've been praising you all week, and that's sincere. I made a big deal on Monday about jury duty being service to your country, and it really is. Y'all came in on Monday, thought you might or might not be picked. The next thing you know, Monday afternoon, you're in a 5-day trial. I appreciate the fact that every day, 15 people got here early or on time so we could start on time. I appreciate the fact that y'all took notes and paid close attention. When I asked you one night if we could stay past 6, you were willing to do it so that we could stay on track. And I appreciate the careful deliberation you gave to the case. So you really have been an outstanding jury, and your participation does you credit. And like I said, this is civil service. This is serving your country. And it's one of, I've said, two most important duties that you can perform in peacetime. And we couldn't have done it without you. It's been a difficult case, and y'all kept a good attitude throughout. A couple things, and I'm going to let y'all go. Jury, court security is going to see y'all to your cars. This does count as your jury service for at least a year. So if we call you or write you, and it's been less than a year, then you can call back and say you were with me and remind them, and you don't have to be here. Let's talk about some of the right that you have not to talk about the case. No one can make you talk about this case or your thoughts and impressions or what you said or anything. You're free now to go home, and you're free now if you want to talk about the case, you can. If you want to go to live streaming sites or Google anything, you're released from all of that. That's up to you. If you choose, that's your choice, but no one can make you. And if you choose to say nothing, that's fine. I do always reintroduce the attorneys because I occasionally, when I was a practicing attorney, would have a juror call me, and I found what they had to say helpful. If you want to, if you should bump into the attorney somewhere out in public, they would never come to you, other than they might wave or something, but they would never come up to you and try to ask you questions or put you under pressure. But if you want to reach out, you can. Bridget Jensen works for Bill Eddins, your elected state attorney. Bill Eddins' number is in the blue pages. Barry Barasa works for, or is the name person in Barasa and Keene. They have a big house on 9th Avenue that's their business. John Barasa, his son, I believe, is on Government Street, has his own law firm. So if you want to, you can. At any rate, thank you. And that's mostly what I can say. I told you I felt like you were my people. You have been my people. And I'm going to get y'all checked out. I want y'all to be safe out there and keep monitoring the storm if it should come into the Gulf. I hope that another day, another time, in a year or two, I might see one or two of you again on another case. But for today, you are free to go. Thank you. Everybody can have a seat. Ms. Jensen, any reason we cannot move to sentencing? Mr. Barry Barasa. Okay. Ms. Jensen, anything you want to say before I impose sentence?
Judge, I do have the aunt of Taylor Wright that would like to be heard before the court poses sentence. I understand it's a mandatory sentence, but she would like to be heard.
Sure. If you want to maybe turn the podium. And my understanding is we don't have to have a score sheet because there is only one sentence which can be imposed.
right, ma'am, we'll start with this. Raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? If so, say I do. Okay.
Please state your name, please.
Joan Goldstein Huskins Parker.
And Ms. Huskins Parker, what was your relationship to Taylor Wright?
I was Taylor's aunt.
And is there something you want to say to the court before she imposes a sentence?
Yes, I do want to say that, and I know this is, that I was there when Taylor came into this world, and I'm here today. And I just want you to know that our family has lost so much. A piece of our tree of life is gone. We will never get it back. For us, this is just closing some of the book for the legal, but it doesn't close the book for all of us. Myself, her father, her stepmother, my husband, my children, my grandchildren, her son, everybody. And that Taylor was taken too early, and she was not taken through an act of God or through illness. She was taken through human behavior that was very cruel. And I could go on, but it's just such a tragic story. But I wanted to thank you, and I'm glad that we came to this decision today.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Barry Barossett, do you or does Ms. McArthur want to say anything before I impose sentence?
Judge, the only thing I would offer in the court, just run this as concurrent with her other sentence that she's already been sentenced to. That's it.
Okay, I just need all of you to stand. And Ms. McArthur, I'm going to ask you one question. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? If so, say I do. Okay. Ms. McArthur, I want to make sure that I ask you personally, do you want to say anything to the court? Okay. All right, then Ashley McArthur, having been found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of your peers of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm, I am going to adjudicate you guilty. I'm going to sentence you to life with a mandatory minimum 25 years state prison for the firearm. That will be with credit for
327 days.
327 days. That will run concurrent with any other sentence that you are serving. I assume it's $518 fines and costs. Are there any other fines and costs? And anything else the state other than the 30 days? All right, and you have 30 days. The 518 will be reduced to a lien. And you have 30 days to appeal the judgment and sentence of the court. If you cannot afford to hire an attorney, one will be appointed for you. I wish you good luck. While they're fingerprinting Ms. McArthur, everybody who has remained has been cooperative, but as everyone is parting into the hallway, please, again, there's been enough upset and tragedy and horrible circumstances. Don't add to the situation by getting out in the hall and getting in some sort of back and forth with somebody on the other side of the case. Everybody just needs to go their own way and leave it at that, okay? As soon as I sign the fingerprint card, then I'll be done. Anything else from the state? Barry Barossett?
When do you expect to enter the judgment? We got 30 days from the date of the judgment.
Is it going to be entered today? Do we need to do it today?
We don't have to.
We can do it Tuesday then. I'll have them walk it up to me Tuesday or bring it to court Tuesday, and that way the clock starts running Tuesday, if that's better. Okay, that's what I'll do. Okay. All right, and with that, all court business is finished.
And that is that on that. The next trial will be something totally different. I'll probably start getting it ready tonight, and we will be on tomorrow. Thank you guys. Thanks for all the memberships and sticking with me all week. And I'm gonna try to finish my, fix my mic. I don't know what is going on. It acts like I'm touching it and I'm not. All right, off I go. Bye.